they decided to go with the fucking, and this movie could be great. I don't like, again, I don't know. We know that I guess I heard the Chameleon's going to be the bad guy, which might explain the Punisher and the Hulk being in it. Kind of can't really explain the Hulk, but we won't get into those details. But yeah, like if they wanted to really spell out that comic book fans, we knew this, but we don't give a fuck about you anymore.
You will find that what Gary does a lot of times, what these guys do a lot of times, is they would have you believe that this company that has a lot of moving parts in it, different writers, different directors, different investors, all that they collectively get together and decide they want to fuck over fans of comic books.
That's what they want to do.
That just doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense whatsoever.
They don't do that?
So he's like, it's a slap in the face, or they hate us, or whatever. Like, they are doing that as like a wedge. They want to drive that wedge in between you and the media, as if you're supposed to just hate it because he wants you to hate them because he's telling you that they hate you.
Mm-hmm.
That's the entire like we talk about grifting. That is one of the best examples because he doesn't know that. He's just saying it.
At the end of the day, the core thing, the main thing, the first primary thing that they want is for you, the effect they want to have as influencers is to make you have resentment toward the thing that you once loved. And it's, that's why there's so many lapsed fans, people that were maybe fans in the 90s or something, but they haven't been in a long time. But that's the easiest people for them to get because there's somebody that's felt like at one point they had a connection to this stuff, but it's been so long that connection's hazy in their memory. They don't really, but so it's really easy to convince these people, that thing you used to love, it's fucking terrible now. Not only that, they hate you. Specifically you. It's like...
And hate is an emotion. It's not even something that a company is capable of doing. It's such a dumb statement.
To think that, they're doing these things, they call it this because of money. And I think, honestly, it makes sense to call this movie that because, like I said, the end of No Way Home was essentially One More Day.
Way better than One More Day, but yes.
It did the same function. It put his identity back in the box, and it fucking broke up and erased his relationship with him.
Except it wasn't a deal with Mephisto, and it wasn't shitting all over MJ, so that's good. But, yeah.
I mean, honestly, I think MJ in the comics had a better deal with because this one just like, oh, you're doing that? Okay, I guess I have no.
Well, they hadn't even been together that long, so it was like, yeah.
Yep. I found
they hate you. There's a slap in the face. So shut the fuck up.
Fucking disingenuous, man. So disingenuous.
Go groom your beard, fucking caveman.
Go groom your Star Wars theory, man. The shy, nerdy, awkward kid to Gwen Stacy, to the death of Gwen Stacy, to then Mary Jane, and then look, they turns out they get married and they're happily ever after. Except you get to read them being happily ever after and making weird, obscure sexual position references. I'll pull that up in a second. Imagine being a little kid and like trying to get into Spider-Man, and this is what is going on in Peter's private life. Not Spider-Man stuff, but in his private life, he's with a supermodel. And he's like just being a suave ass motherfucker, and he's gonna give her a Venus butterfly.
That is literally the coolest sentence anyone has ever said.
So the Venus butterfly is a term used for various sexual techniques, one of which was the subject of the 1988 book, The 1 Hour Orgasm, which first publicly mentioned in a 1986
good job, Peter. American
television drama. However, a technique of the same name appears in the book The Sensuous Woman, which was first published in 1969. So there's a LA Law episode where they talk about it. It's called that.
I remember as a kid, I kept up with LA Law, so I will have been down.
So it's an oral technique, essentially, is what it is.
Damn, Peter.
So, unlike Batman, apparently, if you remember that from a couple of years ago, where the DC was like, Batman does not eat pussy or something. Peter does.
And he's telling you he does.
Good for Peter.
He's being very upfront about it.
So, you know, I kind of
I'm going to eat your pussy. Let's go.
Yeah.
That's what he's saying.
This is them saying Peter can get it.
Right.
I'm gonna fucking munch down on that. I'm gonna yummy down on that box for about an hour until you just fucking come everywhere. Okay, that's what's going on in Peter's.
And the door closing says plamp. I've never seen that one before. Plamp.
Yeah,
that's a new one.
Well, there was some moisture on the door. It made a weird noise.
And look, they got a couple of hours to go. She goes, "I'll take 2." So they're going to do it twice. He's going to give it to her twice. So she'll take 2 of them.
Meanwhile, Daredevil could never last that long. He'd be hearing everybody screaming for help and stuff.
What was it called? The Venus
Butterfly.
Venus
butterfly.
Z.
I want Z.
Venus butterfly. He's also wearing like his Hugh Hefner smoking jacket. It's like, what is happening here?
Now think about the fact that very intentionally the original stories of Spider-Man, or Peter Parker in particular, him having this being able to shoot webs. He built the thing himself or whatever, but like the web shooter, he shoots these webs. This gunk comes out of him, and like there's literally a couple of points early on where there's gunk like seeping under the doorway when Aunt May's like, "Oh, what's this gunk? This white goo?" Is like there's very clearly a puberty thing going on there with like the allegory going, and it's like now this is what Peter does.
This is the evolution
under the door. It's not coming from Peter.
Right, the evolution of it.
So this one power is really a piece of tech that Spidey wears on his wrists that fire a high tensile web substance, unless we're talking the Raimi version. Ugh. I know it's an allegory for puberty, but we really didn't need organic web shooters.
So this is where Bully Maguire came from.
The secret origin unlocked.
I'm lonely. You aren't there for me.
Look at little MJ Jr. Gonna cry.
I bet there's like 3 to 5 people in here that would have their, that if you seize their hard drives, you know what I mean? Like just easily 3 to 5.
I want to say, look, I follow a lot of different news sources, and the amount of right-leaning conservative people that are found with shit like that on their hard drives it's every day. It's at least one a day, sometimes multiple times a day.
Yeah,
so
what was that guy that just recently got busted, who's like known for writing articles against queer people?
Oh, yeah. Daily Wire writer who accused LGBTQ people of being groomers, Aaron Craig Gleason, has been arrested for doing that to a child under the age of 12.
Yeah. Well, and then you look at there's a video upload from last week when we looked at the January 6th pardons, and there was a inordinate amount of those guys had either previously or more recently been accused of some shit like that.
Where's the outrage videos on this guy? Like, I don't see any of the like libs of TikToks talking about him or any of the other guys talking about him. Like they just, it just ignore stuff like this. So no big shocker, I guess, though.
Yeah, I gotta find my 16-year-old wife an alternative vision for how things could be. I want a 16-year-old that's untouched, pristine.
Oh no.
Untouched, uncorrupted, innocent.
Nick made these comments about a 16-year-old woman and 16-year-old wife, that he wants a 16-year-old wife. But we really need to shoot lower than that. I don't think you need to wait till the girl's 16. I think you should have forced child marriage is what I support. Forced child. Obviously, I'm not promoting quote unquote pet, but it gets thrown around at people who talk about so-called underage girls. But the appropriate time to have sex is after the first menstruation. That's when the marriage should be consummate. There should not be an age limit on when you can get married.
But CBS has unearthed a tape of him talking to a 10-year-old, and listen to what he says.
Thursday night, you're going up the escalator? I'm going to be dating her in 10 years. Can you believe it?
You wanted monsters, you got monsters.
You can hear him say, I'm going to be dating her in 10 years. Can you believe it?
Welcome to every video we make. We use one little thing and then we build the narrative out of it. Brie Larson says one fucking thing and we make a whole video out of it. That's what we do.
Words are flowing out like woke Mary Sue, objective truth. They don't mean much, but nothing ever does across the grift of
right, you assholes.
You can pick up the softback trade paper.
The what now?
How do you do, fellow kids?
The f***ing what? Yo, yo, yo. Hello. Hello and hi. Here I am. So, I'm going to do a test real quick. I want you guys to tell me if my audio sounds like really bad right now. Because I kind of misplaced. Wait, was this it? Nope. I misplaced my my little fuzzy filter thing that goes on the tip of my microphone. Because I got another thing that I use specifically for recording music. And I have to take the original one off to use that. And now I'm not sure where I placed the original. So let me know if it's like super great. Sounds fine. Okay. Cool. Well then I shall there I am. All right, sounds normal. Let's see what like it's not right. It's not right. But I think it would look weird if I use the new thing that I got, which is specifically for recording like singing vocals and stuff. It's a pop filter, but it's also like huge. So let me see. Let me put it on here. It goes like I'll mute it so I don't kill you guys. Does that work? You guys hear me okay? You hear me well? All right. No problems? Okay, cool. Audio's good. All right. Gordy, how you sound? Sound all right? Say something. Say something. You're always talking to me. Say something. Yeah? Say it louder. I don't think they heard you. Good. Yeah, so what this actually does is it solves a lot of problems for me recording vocals for the music I'm working on, because instead of having to like fill up my room, like all the walls with foam squares and whatnot, audio foam squares, which cost money, and like, and I'd rather have other stuff on the walls too, and like also I just can't put it all around me because I've got a big ass monitor here. I can't put them on the monitor. This thing kind of makes that not necessary. But it also hides, half of my ugly head. So you're welcome. You're welcome. You're welcome. You don't have to look at me. You should, Okay, Gordy, you're fucking up, man. All right. I just got a thing in the mail, just like right before the show. So Friday, which I'm sure we'll be doing something about it on the Live AF on Friday. But Friday, I don't know if you guys know this, is Superman Day this year. It kicks off the summer of Superman. So I figured, get a hat that doesn't fit. No, it fits. I just got to open it up. Okay, so I'm not sure if anybody else is going to be showing up today, to be honest with you guys. Let me pull this shit off. I'm not sure if anybody else is going to be on today. If not, then I'm sorry. It's just me. I know that many of you show up for other people, and hell, I don't blame you. But we'll see. Had a couple of maybes. I don't think I had any certain RSVPs. Still a little too tight. Okay. I have a big head, so. Oh shit! We have a surprise entry. Hello. Oh, I should have waited. You weren't ready.
No. I was just getting that on. I have to like listen. I want to know what's going on before I like jump on. But
I hear, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, really, it's just me. I just opened this package that had this cap in it, and I put it on. That's about it.
Oh, that's what that was. See, I heard you talking about a package, and I was like, I'm sure that's something, but I'm looking at my screen, so I have no idea.
You're like, what am I getting into here? Get the sticker off of there. There we go. All right. Yeah, I was just kind of messing around with my microphone because I got this thing for recording like vocals for singing. It's really big and it goes on the end of my microphone. It's like a super duper pop filter kind of thing.
Yeah,
Did
no,
someone
totally.
just show up? Oh,
I've got a
shit,
big old like box back there that's like just a single like it's just a bunch of soundproofing stuff in a tiny box for like that exact like general purpose, and then I never ended up using it. But
Well, like, so you have to take the original thing that comes on my microphone. You have to take that off to put this on. And I just realized right when I was going live that I had not found that, and I don't know where it is immediately. So hopefully it doesn't sound super grating. I'll try not to do any plosives, any, How's it going, Ryan? What's up, man?
Pretty good, pretty good.
So this morning, or last night rather, I saw a message in our server from Ryan about the Daredevil finale, and I hadn't watched it yet at that point. And he says, there's there was two things you said. I think one of them was that people aren't going to believe that this wasn't written last week, and then also something nearly made you throw up. And I took those two things to mean like this kind of, they reference the same thing or something. And I thought you were saying like the show is so bad that like it's so slapped together at the last minute that it made you want to throw up. That's kind of what I was like, oh man, that's really fucking disappointing. Jeez. That wasn't what you meant. I'm sure we'll get into spoilers for that before too long. So if you haven't watched the finale of Daredevil Born Again yet, I would suggest if you have any interest in it at all that you should watch it rather than listen to us spoil it for you. But we will eventually get to talking about details, I think, and I'll make sure that's known. I'll make sure it's on the screen.
Wait, Ryan, did you also say that it felt like it was written last week?
Oh wait,
I don't think I did. I think that was you, but
okay. I just wanted to know because it was like if I ripped you off, then
no, you're right. That was you, and I just kind of mushed them together in my head.
The weird thing is, though, that is what I was thinking, and if I hadn't said the first thing, then that's what I would have said. I'm really looking forward to going into that because I watched Dyad in the Forces watch along of it, and they made a similar point to the one I'm going to make, but I'm not going to.
Well, I have a Bloody Disgusting article, which is actually a publication for anyone not aware. A Bloody Disgusting article that goes into the details behind that moment and how it came to be. Like the actual effects behind it and everything, and it's pretty interesting and made me appreciate it a little bit more. And it made me, and we'll get into it. Like, was it necessary? And I would argue that yes, it was. But anyway, other than that, what do we got? There's a really bad Batman take from Bo DeMaio. We talk about that. Seems like he kind of maybe got lucky with whatever he contributed to the X-Men 97 thing, because like everything I've seen since then is like, have you read comics before, man?
I mean, how much of it at this point is sincere, though, right? Like, true. It could have just be, like he could know everything about comics or whatever. I'm sure significantly more than I do, but then, at this point, you kind of have to, if you want to appeal to any crowd in the position that he's in, you kind of have to not know.
Yeah, I feel like look, if you're going to grift, just, learn from Bo DeMaio at least, and don't make your first big grift drop on OnlyFans. I don't think that went as well for him as he maybe expected it to.
It could have been on like Patreon too. It didn't have to be.
Yeah.
Like if you're going to do the paywall thing.
Yeah, there's other paywalls that like don't kind of imply that you're going to have your genitals in your hand or something when you tell people some information. Anyways, what else was there? Ben Shapiro doesn't like the Superman movie coming up, based on the teaser recently. That doesn't mean anything except maybe it's does it mean that the movie's going to be really good? I don't know.
I mean, he kind of is just like an opposite compass when it comes to film. So
yeah, I mean, plus they seem kind of desperate to both get conversation off of Daily Wire and maybe get more, clicks. So other than that, there's the just last night I came across how the singer of Disturbed and the singer of Green Day they're the singers of bands that I used to like to varying degrees and now I'm embarrassed about. And they are at odds when it comes to Israel and Palestine. So I don't know what that means, except
wait, Green Day's embarrassing now?
Oh, damn. I mean, the music is kind of bad. I mean, it's not bad. It's just like they haven't done anything that's really exciting or interesting in so long that every time I try and listen to them, like a new thing will come out and I'm like, oh, new Green Day, maybe this is the one. No, that's not it. You know?
Oh,
Like,
I thought you were talking about the most recent controversy or whatever that they're in with
which is what?
Changing the lyrics of, I think, was it Jesus of Suburbia, to say that's the what, running away from pain when you've been victimized. Changing that to running away from pain like the kids in Palestine.
Oh.
You know, like that was the thing that people were like losing their
Well,
minds over.
so yeah, that happened. That wasn't. I guess that's the thing to be controversial. I don't see how that's even like not just a fact. But
no, I'm with you there.
But yeah, so he did that, and then David Draymond, who is just kind of an impressively scumbaggy kind of motherfucker. The more I looked into it, because like he's the singer of Disturbed. Guy. You know, there's video of him signing bombs in Israel that were going to be then dropped on Gaza. So like, and he's like wanting to, I guess, morality police Billy Joe for changing the lyrics of a song or whatever and having something to say about the situation. He's just he's all Israeled up, David Draymond. And it's just kind of cringe. And so are a lot of the photos. I want to talk about, like, this is completely an aside, but I found so many photos where he's doing something with his hand. He's like this or like this or this or something. It's like, I just picture him at every photo shoot. Like, I don't know what to do with my hands, you know? So he just does random shit. Yeah. Oh yeah. That's real. That's real. They are an embarrassing fucking band. I liked like some of the songs off of that very first album when I was 17 years old, and I've never let myself live that down. No, but fact, they've never actually been the shit. They've always sucked. Anyways, other than that, that's about all I have. I guess we could look at what else was there? I don't know. We can get into Daredevil. You want?
I mean, hell yeah, I'm here for Daredevil.
Get it out of the way. Not that it's something to get out of the way, but you know, so that in case there's anybody that you know is afraid of being spoiled, I'd say, let me put a thing on the screen real quick. So Ryan, what was your overall thought of the season without getting into details yet?
I think watching it week by week, it felt uneven. There's some episodes I really loved. There's some story arcs I really loved. Overall, I wasn't enamored by the actual Kingpin of it all until the very end. But then that's a personal thing, because to me, he's not a great character for Daredevil to face off against. But that's just for me personally.
That's interesting. I guess. Well, like, why do you think that Kingpin isn't a great character for Daredevil to be against?
Well, it's on the Matt Murdock side of things. It's the legal stuff, which Kingpin is always going to get away with until he doesn't, and he goes to prison. So it's kind of, there's no drama there for me. The whole tension about courtroom dramas is you don't know if they're going to find somebody guilty or innocent, and in drama you can actually show the audience, if you want to, whether they are guilty or innocent. Whereas with Kingpin, yes, we know he's guilty, so there's no.
So they seem to kind of like move away. I think, in fact, from what I remember, they did what they had filmed initially before they changed their mind about more than half the season, I think, was that it was more of a courtroom based show. Right?
Yeah, and I think that's difficult to do with a comic book show as well. I think that's probably why originally it was going to be 24 episodes. I could see it kind of like being, I guess, sort of Law and Order, where it's, instead of the cops investigating, it's Daredevil, and then it's Daredevil also prosecuting. I have no factual basis for that. That's just sort of thing. But yeah, so the courtroom side of things with the Kingpin doesn't really interest me. So then what is it? Because he's not going to stop. So what's Daredevil going to do? Just keep beating him up until hopefully one day he feels sorry for it? It seems like that's sort of always an impasse, where I think Daredevil's really interesting villains are the ones that create a moral quandary for him, like Elektra, and in a sense Punisher as well, who is, I would say, a Daredevil antagonist and protagonist.
You're right. Well, like, anytime, light spoilers here, but like, yeah, with them getting together in this episode finale, it's just anytime they're on screen together, they both just kind of pop, right? Like, I fucking love it. I think that's the most, I've said this going back to my video 5 years ago, I realized yesterday. my Punisher video, that like the absolute best use of Punisher is putting him with Daredevil or Spider-Man or somebody like that doesn't want him to kill people, and he's going to be trying to kill people anyway. Like just the action scenes are great when it comes to that, the literal of that, but then also just like the the dialogue about the morality of killing people or not versus what Daredevil does and stuff like that. Fucking love it.
I think it fundamentally like introduces a very interesting moral quandary that wasn't there before, where even though he's not directly killing anyone, now Daredevil is getting people killed anytime he works with, the Punisher. Like, I just think that's such an interesting relationship for them to have, because he's fully willing to accept his help when the need arises.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
and then he just, like meekly is like, "Oh, stop killing people, Frank." And Frank's like, "I'm not going to do that."
Like, yeah, he fucking clubs that dude in the head like really, really hard, like with the potential for brain damage or murder. And then he's like, "No, don't shoot him." It's like, what did you just do? But no, there was like whenever the first episode that Frank was in, where it was just really that one scene, which was a fucking excellent scene. Episode 4, I think. It seemed like Matt was kind of trying to goad him into doing Punisher stuff again. Like if you really kind of read the subtext of what Matt was saying, he was like, "Oh, you're just in here doing, nothing or whatever." It's like, what are you doing, Matt? He's not being Punisher right now. He's not doing anything, and you're kind of like provoking him. It's kind of weird.
And I think that's, for me, that's where the interest lies. Is Matt sort of wrestling with his demons, because he's his moral code is always wobbly. So, to be honest, I think Kingpin works far better in the comics, and I think this is the same for all ongoing villains, because it doesn't end. Whereas, how many times can we see him? Not that this show's necessarily doing that, especially if we look at it fresh. But how many times can we see Kingpin getting away with stuff?
Well, that's the thing that I was a little bit disappointed in with this season. Is it okay if I like share stuff from episode 1?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, yeah, I just wanted to so I made a video before this ever came out, basically like talking about things that I wanted to be done with Kingpin, under the general like impression that they were going to be doing Born Again. Like the other, they did half of Born Again in season 3 of the original show, and it was like maybe they're going to do the Grudge half in this, and then obviously they didn't end up doing any. Oh God, where was I even going with that? Damn it!
Something about episode 1.
But... Yeah, no, something about episode. Oh, I don't know. Okay, there was another connection here, but I was just like, I was disappointed that they kind of glossed over like the whole Kingpin becoming mayor sort of thing. Like I was hoping for that to be sort of a longer running plot line. Like a mid-season finale kind of deal. Like, okay, now he's, now shit's getting real. Especially because then, like, if you read just like the description for the finale, they say something about like how, Mayor Fisk is becoming Mayor Kingpin. And it's like, I feel like that would have hit harder if he had become Mayor Fisk halfway through. So then it was like, we've seen the first transition and now the second one. But
yeah, no, that's a good point. I mean, I guess there's just like there were several episodes, or at least a couple, that really didn't have anything at all to do for the most part with him. So I guess, but no, I definitely see what you're saying. Like, why did people vote him in? You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
and like a bunch of people that want things to change or whatever. But like, I don't know. I feel like there's something missing there about why they would go. Well, this guy, he was actually incredibly accused of a bunch of stuff, and he only kind of got out of prison on a technicality, which we didn't find out until this episode.
And especially because he basically already had that sort of plot line in season 3 of Daredevil, where he was like charming the population into believing that he was innocent. And then that went very badly when, of course, it was revealed that he did spoiler things in season 3 of Daredevil, And so it's like, okay, what, like what's his spin this time? How did he come back from his second comeback? Like, it just felt like they wanted to do a show where Kingpin is mayor, which, like, fair enough. I understand wanting to just be like, this is the premise of the show, shut up about the other stuff. But it was still a little bit like disappointing that it wasn't, that it wasn't like at least addressed in any, meaningful way.
Yeah. In chat, folks. Well, first of all, let me address this one. Like, dude, nobody's even knows what you're talking about. Actual fandom own drinker for clout and to own the chuds. What does that even mean? Speak, if you're I don't know if you're trying to be antagonistic, but if you are, please make sense. At least, yeah, I mean, I can see that if it's not your bag, giving up on it. And then this, yeah, it does take a minute to come together. personally, I just love watching. I think Charlie Cox as Matt Murdock or Daredevil is fucking compelling to watch. And for an hour or so every week, there's a lot of things that aren't as interesting to me for an hour a week as that. So, but like taken as a whole, as a story overall, yeah, I definitely see that it's pretty wonky. And if I was trying to watch it like I used to watch the old Netflix show, I don't know. But yeah, 1 hour a week, I can watch it, take that bite size and go, okay, yeah, all right. But I mean, still, I'm going to come out of it thinking I like watching Charlie Cox. You know what I mean?
For me, and I don't know if this has got to do with the way that the series sort of developed with the earlier stuff, but the Kingpin was far better written and more interesting in the second half of the season. It felt I don't know why I was so bored by the Kingpin in the first half of the season, but the first four episodes are just.
I think that what they were trying to do was they were trying to convince us that he was legitimately trying to be not the Kingpin, that he was legitimately trying to be the mayor or whatever, which, like, of course, that's not what it is, because he's still going to do, whether he's doing it now, they just aren't showing us, which is the case because of that Adam thing that they didn't reveal for a while, or he's just going to, explode at some point. Why would you make a show about him if he wasn't going to do Kingpin shit? If he was just legitimately trying to become the mayor and do good mayor shit, you know what I mean? Like,
I think like there would have been something there if they were like, if he was legitimately trying to not be the Kingpin, and then we were seeing like stuff happen that kept like making him fall back into it. And it's like, okay, we know he's going to end up there, but we know he's trying not to, as opposed to what we were kind of watching, where it's like, is he trying not to, or is he just bullshitting us this whole time? Yeah. And then we're like, oh, he was bullshitting us this whole time, but also I guess he does want to fix the roads. Like, I don't know. There was a bit in the finale, which I guess I don't necessarily have to spoil, but that really called into a bunch of that into question for me, because I was like, okay, wait, what is his morality right now? I don't know if there was one thing he did that felt really out of character, not necessarily as like a bad thing, but like I wanted to know what caused him to make that decision. And I feel like we just didn't get enough development for, where he's at.
Let's get into it then. What is the thing specifically that you're talking about?
Well, yeah. So, my girlfriend agreed with me on this, so I know I'm not like completely insane, but we watched at the end of episode 8, right? Matt saves him from getting shot. And then we don't get a ton of follow up to that, like not enough follow up, but then, I was expecting that the next episode, the finale, was going to have some interesting dynamic where Kingpin is trying to balance like his general feeling of like kind of being honor bound to this guy with the fact that obviously he hates him, but he basically instantly is like, oh yeah, just kill him. Like, I don't even care. It's like, I feel like in season 1 of the original show, or even season 3, he probably would have had like a, you know what, I'm going to give you an extra 24 hours for that, buddy. Kind of mentality. So I was like, okay, what caused him to be like, you know what? Nope. I'm just 100% cool with, killing people, even as they,
maybe he kind of in a way did give him a cause he sent, like, who the fuck is Buck? He sent Buck with some with some poison or something. Come on.
I mean, yeah, but you also like, you'd also feel like Matt is the kind of person that if he's gonna kill him, he's gonna show up and do it himself. Like that feels like, I mean, he could have even turned that into a sort of like a photo op kind of deal where he's gonna, he visits Matt in the hospital, slyly, poisons him or whatever, and then like, you get the photo op of him, whatever, crying over Matt's body or something like that. Like, it just felt weird that it was so impersonal to me.
No, I definitely was like, I guess I kind of just forgot about it as the plot moved on. But yeah, it's like one of the first things in this episode is him. I'm kind of expecting him to at least address, why does he think that Matt did this? How does he feel about it? Doesn't even address it. He's just like, well, he's in the hospital. He's wounded. Let's kill him. So
honestly, yeah. Apart from the actual why, which I think is an interesting question that Kingpin never wrestled with, I think the idea of him wanting to kill Matt straight away, that's more interesting to me than giving him the time, because he's immediately trying to turn the situation to his personal advantage. He's usurping the real hero of the hour, Matt Murdock, and inserting himself into it by saying, oh, he's died, now we're going to memorialize him. And it also means that if there's no chance of then it coming out that Matt Murdock's Daredevil, and that's sullying the Kingpin's reputation, because people could easily say, well, all right, you're saying vigilantes are bad, but this one saved your own life. So
See, but there's something really interesting there because in the original show, you had this kind of back and forth between Matt and Fisk, where, I mean, Matt didn't really seem to have much respect for him at all, but Fisk had this clear, like, you and I both love this city, and even though, like, we disagree and I'm going to kill you or whatever, I'm going to respect you as I do it kind of deal. To the point where, like, it would have been interesting for him to have, like, some kind of a moral, like, quandary about it. Like, you know, he's basically, by defeating his enemy here, by sending him to be assassinated, he's making the person that he's, you know, who's been his adversary for years and years and years now into a hero, you know, like he's like canonizing him as like a great hero of the state. So you would expect for him to have some feelings about that. Like, either I feel bad about doing this, but I gotta do what I gotta do, or I feel bad about this because I'm making my enemy, like, I'm having to make the person that I hate the most in the world into a hero in order to advance my own goals, you know? And I just felt like he didn't have any, you know, like, they're just, it didn't feel like he had any opinions on it besides, like, well, it would be a shame if he died in the hospital. I'm like, I mean, yeah, but this was your, like, best frenemy.
Real quick, every week there's one. Oh man, you made us look really bad because there's only 18 viewers on one of the 4 channels this is currently streaming on, you fucking moron.
Also, 21 viewers because the 3 of us are watching it. At least get it right.
It's on several channels. It's on my channel. It's on Bob's channel. It's on Turf's channel. Maybe it's on the Shillcast channel. You know, total 58. So more than 18, bud. All right. Another part of that is, like, what is it? Are they thinking that, like, that's going to make us go, oh man, they won't have 18 viewers, we better stop? You know, like, what are we going to do? What is the point of that? I don't know. Anyway, yeah, no, it's freaking, it is compelling just to think about, but like, there are things that they could have made more clear as far as why he made the choice that he did, and like how he felt about what happened at the end of the you know, it's kind of just glossed over. It's almost like the gunshot that Matt got is more just used as a reason for him to be kind of weak in the finale.
Yeah.
That's it.
Especially because he got shot with something big. Oh, yeah, go.
I was just going to say that I don't know if that's necessarily the reason. Like, him getting shot seemed like more of an inconvenience to the final episode, which is why certain things it felt like certain things are sort of like, well, when he recovers from this, then we'll do the stuff that would have been the finale, but stretched out over season 2. So it's like it needed to happen, but they probably thought, well, we can't do another flash forward. But I think the other thing for me is I'm not necessarily treating this like a continuation of the Netflix series.
Oh.
And no, it's more like, I guess you would look at it as like it's a new writer coming onto a comic book series. So it's some of the stuff that we saw happen in the Netflix series is like canon, but some of it has been sort of retconned, basically. So I don't think we can see the characters the same.
It's been so long since I watched those that, like, in my hazy memory that I have of them, where like certain things stand out, but like it fits. But I bet if I went back and watched those 3 seasons now, there would be several things that stand out as like, well, that's kind of weird, you know, in Born Again when this happens or whatever. But yeah, so maybe that's what they're counting. It's just the hazy memory kind of.
And that's kind of how I'm treating it. I've not gone back and watched the original seasons to get to the original series to catch up. But yeah, I think that what would have been, it seemed like they were getting there as well. It's just they sort of compacted and stretched some of the elements of it. Is that he, like you said, Kingpin was trying to become Mayor Fisk, and it would have been nice. The problem is Vincent D'Onofrio, he's made him too weird from the start. So it's hard to believe him being earnest in that role. And
Well, I mean, plus,
so
now I'm kind of questioning if what I said was right at all, because maybe they weren't trying to convince us that he might be going legit, because it was pretty early on, like Commissioner Gallo, which we're going to get to him, believe me. But earlier in the season, whenever that, he said he was going to resign, and Fisk was like, no, here's pictures of your, was it illegitimate family or something he had or some shit or what, like somewhere. He was basically threatening him there. And it's like, that's straight up Kingpin shit.
Yeah. And I think that was either them hinting that they're not doing what you were suggesting, or that was an error on their part, because I think it would have been more interesting. It would have been more interesting if it had been straight up. He's out of prison. He has, after what he went through with Echo, which is that because he's got an eye again. So I don't know where we stand there. But like, after what he went through with her, and saw how that sort of messed everything up for him personally, is he deciding that he wants to be Mayor Fisk? But does Vanessa now only love the Kingpin? Because the hint we got towards the end of the show is that she despises Wilson Fisk and is in love with Kingpin. And I think if we could have seen that at the start, be stronger.
Which is a very interesting turn for that character, because it's kind of like, he always assumed that he needed to keep those separate, and that, that she wouldn't want to know about the Kingpin stuff. And clearly he was wrong.
She's been seduced by the evil, but then then it's harder to work in the couples therapy element of it all, because like you said, we've assumed that she wouldn't like that side of him. So it feels like it could have done with a couple of episodes before the first episode, building up to, or where their relationship is now, and him becoming mayor.
Yeah. Well, what does this guy say? Hey,
what's up?
How's it going, man?
Rough day.
Not as rough as Commissioner Gallo.
Oh, that was pretty rough. Yeah, that was rough.
We haven't got into that quite yet, but
that happened yesterday, so he's probably fine now.
Oh yeah.
He's having a good time.
They showed the
make whenever there's an obvious, like, somebody obviously is not going to make it in a movie or something. I'll be like, I say to my girlfriend, he's going to make it. He's going to be all right.
Did you guys see the prosthetic they made for the shot?
Yeah, I got the article.
Oh, and I don't want to see it.
We talk about that shit, but yeah, I'm ready to go in pretty deep.
Well, what I wanted to say is where the episode, and I know I did watch Eric's coverage of this on his stream last night, is where it really turned the corner for me was probably episode 5 into episode 6. I really loved that Bank Vault episode. I'm disappointed it didn't tie in more smoothly to the overall story, because I don't think they made enough of that background story of the different gangs. But I love that episode. I thought that was a perfect sort of
day in the life kind of thing.
Yeah, bottle episode, if you will. Although not a cheap one, but still. Yeah.
No, if they had, maybe 15 total episodes of where it's kind of a blend of that kind of thing, and then more, just overall story driving stuff, Kingpin stuff, whatever, then that could have been a good blend. You said they originally had 24 episodes, is that right?
That's what they originally. It was something ludicrous. Yeah, it was a high number.
To go down to 9 is just kind of bizarre.
Well, I don't know if they originally. I think I'm getting this wrong, but I'm sure they were going to be shorter episodes as well. But they definitely were planning to do more. But then maybe they also decided to split it into season 1 and 2.
Yeah, it was 18. I remember now. All right, so getting more into specifics of the finale. Eric, did you like it just generally?
Oh yeah, I mean, I thought it was okay. I didn't feel like a finale to me, though. It felt like the lead up to a finale.
I agree. Like, honestly, that's what I liked about it. I liked that.
Yeah.
I don't know what it was, but like I didn't expect it to do what it did, and it in my opinion was pretty ballsy in a way. I mean, not just because of the fact that it's clearly addressing real world stuff, and to the comment about it, like it's written last week or whatever, there is some pretty specific stuff said that we can get into. That's like, whoa, when did they write this? But yeah, so let's see what happened. So okay, first thing is Matt's in the hospital. Fisk sends Buck. He likes to fuck. I can't hear Buck without thinking that. I'm sorry. My name
Well,
is
no.
Buck.
Before that, the first thing that happens is he gets because it's his girlfriend. Is she?
Yes.
I'm terrible with their names. Is
Heather.
she Helena? Heather. So she's there, and his co-lawyer.
I forget her name.
Can you remember her
they
name,
introduced
Eric?
this whole new cast, and they didn't really like gel with me for the most part. But
Which
what I
person are we
like
talking about? Who are we talking
his
about?
co-lawyer, his law firm
The
partner.
The new one?
Yeah.
Oh, God.
I think her name was
Kirsten.
Kirsten, yeah. So there's a Kim and there's a Kirsten, and I can never remember which one is which, but it's Kirsten,
Okay.
yeah.
But what I thought was really interesting about that scene, and I liked that scene because we were seeing his sort of new trio as opposed to the Foggy, Karen, Matt dynamic of the previous era. This is the new trio, and it doesn't work because they are not as invested in him as a person and his mission, and like she doesn't Kirsten doesn't know what the hell is going on at the law firm with his sort of business life. Heather doesn't know what's really going on in his personal life, and they're sort of it's showing an alternate dynamic to the one that we all loved, one that
Right.
doesn't really work, and so I thought that was really a really clever way of showing it.
I think that was the thing that I liked about, or at least I liked in principle about the entire series, was the fact that both Matt and Fisk felt like they were replacing all of the people they liked around them with lesser, like Buck felt like a replacement for Wesley, and Kirsten, Kirsten felt like a replacement for Foggy, and like all of that. That felt like conceptually really cool.
And they both clearly are struggling with that, which it makes sense, because if you're legitimately trying to change your who you are by your habits and stuff like that, then it's probably a good idea to just kind of change your surroundings and the people around you and stuff.
Well, yeah, and I wonder if they did look at how sort of former addicts recover, because it is that idea of you get yourself out of the situations that made you susceptible to whatever you're addicted to. But I don't think they went enough into it, and I think this is something I'm going to say over and over again. I don't think they delved enough into those interesting.
There's a lot of things that I feel like they didn't do enough of in the season. I don't know if it was because of the mismashing of what the show was originally going to be and the new direction of it, or if there were characters that they are saving for season 2 that they just didn't want to.
Well, see, and then because they're already working on season 2, I'm kind of worried. You know what I mean? Like, are they going to repeat some of that, where they were just kind of like doing stuff without exploring it the best way they could? I don't know.
I think I'm much more confident about season 2 after having seen this, because I think the point that they sort of finished the season on is really where all the pieces are in place now.
Right, but how are they going to execute this? Because it's kind of a big story to set up, right? Yeah. Like, it's pretty
in my head, how I want them to sort it out is that Daredevil raises an army and they just go and beat the shit out of all those corrupt cops and all the Kingpin men.
Anybody that's been heard me lately, I've read so much fucking Daredevil in the last, since this show's been airing, basically. Like 5 different creators' runs, I've burned through them, and there's especially recently with the Zdarsky run, he literally does that. He raises an army. He has an army of he takes over the Hand, and basically turns him into his own thing for a while. And when we'll get there. Okay, so surprise, Buck does not take out Daredevil at the beginning of the finale. Didn't see it coming. Matt just kind of wanders out.
They went there.
Yeah. Whoa. No, and so he gets walks home basically in his as Frank calls him nightgown man. That's pretty great. He gets home and he's kind of chuckles to himself when he sits down, and he's like, "Oh, you're the last person I expected to be here. It's the Punisher." I don't know. I was kind of split on whether or not we'd see him again this season. I didn't know. But of course he showed up, and he's freshly shaven, everything, wearing the skull. And yeah, pretty quickly you get the Punisher cops, the task force, show up at Matt's house to actually, take him out, which is, I don't know why they didn't just plan that in the first place. But yeah, that doesn't go well for them. And yeah.
And again, what I thought they were going to do there, and I kind of wish they had, is when Frank first shows up, he's not wearing the Punisher skull. He sort of changes into that. What I was hoping for is at first he wouldn't be wearing that, and he would take it off that cop that killed White Tiger, and sort of, because there's no urgency about him reclaiming his sort of, not mantle, but taking back his name from these cops.
I mean, I guess we just have to accept what we got, which is that he very clearly roundly rejects the whole thing. Which he's done in comics before, but having him do it on camera is also good. Not that
See, but I also think that I don't know if he is that invested in like reclaiming the title or anything like that. I kind of got the impression, at least that he's trying to come off this way, that like he doesn't care about the fact that people are like using his logo or whatever like that. He just thinks they're like lunatics who don't understand like anything that he goes through. Like I would be surprised if like there was a plot line where he decided to go out of his way to start taking out cops with his logo. You know what I mean? Like it felt more like if he encounters them, he might do that.
And for me, that's a bit disappointing because I kind of want to see just something from the character that isn't just I'm going to kill people that happen to bump into sort of thing. What's the point of Frank Castle as a character if he's just not doing anything?
I don't know, but maybe this episode changed his mind a little bit. To
me, what we're seeing now is him kind of cleaning up the issue that he didn't even, like. If you go back to episode 4, the first one he was in, he was done. He wasn't being Punisher anymore. There's stuff going on that he could be addressing, and he's just kind of not. He's not, really doing anything. And that's, like we said, Matt kind of, taunts him a little bit about that. And he was aware that there was these Punisher cops out there doing stuff, and he hadn't done anything about it yet. So really, like the arc for Frank in this is specifically because Karen says, I knew that you cared or something like that. And then they leave, and he says quietly to himself, he's like, stay safe out there or something like that. Like he's caring about people again. And he cared about Matt. He cared enough to show up and he's going to kill people. He might as well kill these dumb cops at the same time. But like, I think that's just that he's, I don't know about softening up, but he's kind of starting to, I guess, I don't know. It's not
well,
clear,
I think that's interesting. Like you said, him retiring, him stepping away and saying, I'm not going to do this anymore. That's a choice.
Mm-hmm.
That's an interesting choice. But I think the way he came back into it, because Karen called him up and he sort of fancies her, basically, is what they say in the show, is that he's attracted to her and she's attracted to him. And it's like, is that enough motivation for a character?
I mean, I don't think that he just did that because he wants to bang her or something like that. Is he also just cares about her as a person? And I think he cares about me. So like that's what I was kind of getting from it. But I completely agree that I wish that, like, the one thing I would change is that he just wouldn't be wearing the skull. Everything else could basically be the same, but it would be a pretty good statement to have him not wearing the thing while all the cops are. You know what I mean?
I was questioning that at first. I was like, I don't know, I kind of like that, but I do kind of enjoy the idea that they're way more obsessed with the symbol than he is. That is a good visual. Damn it! All right, you've changed my mind.
It's also a good visual just to see Daredevil and Punisher next to each other in the street. You know what I mean? I don't know. I'm a comic book nerd, so that's pretty satisfying. And then so it then there's a whole thing where Frank is just straight up killing these dudes. Matt's he's telling him don't, he tries to save a couple of them and doesn't do such a great job at stopping Frank.
But luckily none of that actually matters in the end, because they will get blown up. So
not playing patty cake with these fanboys. I'm chopping them up. That's what Frank said. Bernthal he does it right. Just great casting there.
Well, that's the other interesting dynamic I thought about the two characters. Here's Daredevil arguing that Punisher shouldn't kill these cops, and then they all just get blown up anyway. So really, whatever the Punisher was doing to them had no effect. And Matt trying to save them had no effect. I think that's really interesting.
Oh yeah, was that was that described as, or was that portrayed as one of the cops throwing a grenade, or was that somebody outside, like a different agent doing that?
I thought it came from outside, but
that's what I was thinking. I was thinking that like one of Fisk's guys decided, like, he didn't give a shit about who he killed.
Because that helicopter was circling the whole time, and it could have been a rocket-propelled grenade. We don't know, but all we knew was a grenade that somebody threw. So,
yeah, I mean, look, we're going to get into this type of take pretty specifically in a little bit too. So, yeah. So, what happens next? There is well, Frank goes on to do his business some more. Matt goes to do his business. That being, and for Frank, it's taking out some of these cops who are going around and like. What's funny is like the put a mask on him is the new, put a gun on him kind of thing, playing a gun on him.
One visual that I think we were completely cheated of is the Punisher sitting in the back of that family car with Daredevil getting shotgun. I would have liked to have seen that. I think that would have been funny, but
true. I mean, but that's also kind of like maybe would have been the expected Marvel thing, and this show is very much not.
That's true. That would have been like memed to hell immediately.
Yeah, maybe would have deflated some of the more intense, because it's fucking intense. Like just like orgy at a campground, it is fucking intense. So yeah, and I'm trying to remember how things played out there. Matt goes to, what does Matt do after that?
They go to they eventually track down Foggy's locker.
Yes,
and they're looking for the files while Frank is assaulting the cops. And there was when the first guy he kills and the blood splashes on the light. I thought that was a fantastic visual. And again, I wish they'd done more sort of unrealistic but cool looking shots like that, like they did with sort of bullseye view.
Oh yeah,
it all went blue. I thought those were some nice, because that's another thing about the first episode. While it looked,
Frank Castle is here in his walkie before Frank slapped it away, and then the grenade was like 2 minutes later. Okay,
yeah,
so the grenade definitely just, I was like, well, we got to blow up the Punisher. We got to get rid of that guy. Fair.
Yeah, in the first episode, there were some nice visuals, which I know a lot of people didn't like because it looked very CGI, but I thought that was intentional. I thought that was a style choice because it was very stylized. The opening rooftop thing with where he's heading toward Foggy's guy and Bullseye's coming the other direction. I thought that was purposely stylized to look like that. But
they did it a few times, like especially in like the premiere and then the finale too, where like the lighting would just very specifically turn red, like whenever at the end of the first episode, and there were purple for Bullseye. Yeah, which it's kind of obvious what it's saying, but it's still kind of neat.
Okay, wait, but sorry, this just hit me. If they knew that Frank was in the building and they still tried to blow him up, that suggests that it wasn't a cop doing it, right? That was like a different government agent of some kind, right? Like, because you would think they wanted to capture him and specifically intentionally use non-lethal weapons,
Well, I don't think it was them that wanted to capture him. It was specifically the vigilante squad that asshole who's been through it out. He wants to recruit. They've got their own like Punisher fan club.
So but like you would think that the cops that showed up to Matt's apartment probably would have been a part of that club if you know what I mean. Like if they had sent a different team, then those would be the guys standing in a line to recruit him, right? Like it just suggests to me that's like Fisk not giving a shit about his people and sending some, willingly killing off a bunch of them if it means dealing with his vigilante problem.
Could be.
But I'm also a little curious, how many people know that Matt is Daredevil?
Not many.
So why would these people be going after a blind lawyer if they didn't know he was a vigilante?
Well, they do know that
told them to.
They know that he can fight. They know that he's a threat to them because he beat the shit out of a couple of them a few episodes ago.
Some of them do, but not all of them, right?
I mean,
there's some of them that got recruited later.
My assumption is
I'm just curious because the general public also doesn't know. So they blew up someone's random house, like a lawyer's house. And I know Kingpin has a lot of control, but that feels like it would be really difficult to explain without outing him as Daredevil.
I think he could say he could say that it's a vigilante who's trying to assassinate the guy.
They could say the Punisher did it.
Yeah, like we know that Matt saved
Castle's
Fisk's life.
involved. You can blame anything on him.
So
as long as
what prevents Kingpin from outing Matt Murdock right now, though? Like, what's the incentive? For
then
him
Daredevil saved his life. You know, like then he'd have to admit that Daredevil saved him.
And that's enough for him to just not admit it?
I mean, I think so. Like he's kind of fighting he's fighting a propaganda war right now.
I mean, he's smashing people's heads in. I don't think that he would care about something like
comics,
that, though.
There's like specifically like there's a long period of time when he knows that he's Matt Murdock and he doesn't do anything about it, except for he actually sells the information to a couple of different people when he's desperate or something like. In Kevin Smith's run, the spoiler alert for this, the bad guy behind all the machinations of that run or that arc was actually Mysterio, and he had bought Daredevil's identity from Kingpin, who was pretty broke at the time, and sold it to him for like $1 million.
I just feel like this is a very messy situation that Kingpin doesn't normally like. It's a lot of loose ends that he doesn't usually leave.
I think the reason sum it up, the reason he doesn't just like give it out and take it to the news or something is because he has power over Matt with it, and it's like I think he values being like Matt, wondering is he going to do anything.
But
with it?
Wouldn't catching Daredevil be one of the biggest prizes for him as the mayor?
I think no, because I think what he's doing as the mayor is bigger. Like it's inspired very much by his, petty grievances of Daredevil, I suppose. No, I guess not petty from his, but like the reason I think he became mayor, even though it doesn't explicitly say this, but he became the mayor, and the first thing he wants to do is get rid of vigilantes. It's pretty obvious to me that I think we talked about this, that he's fucking pissed off that Daredevil brought him down, and he even said he was saying this. He after 10 years of work, Daredevil takes him down.
Except they're gonna find out that Matt Murdock is Daredevil, right? That's gonna happen if one way or another that's gonna come out. So I just don't see what the reason is to not tell people that it's Matt Murdock.
Because he can use it's information he can use to his advantage until he no longer needs to, basically.
Well, I think it's that. I also think that from his perspective, like what I would think if I were in his position, I'd be wanting to do is I would want to in some way take out Matt Murdock as Daredevil and then frame somebody, kill someone else and frame them for having been Daredevil this entire time, which he kind of almost did in season 3
with
Bullseye.
Yes, yeah,
right, exactly. So like he doesn't want to admit that Matt is Daredevil because that is that's an admission that a vigilante did something good.
And that's what I thought last night initially, but the more I've thought about it, it just seems like this whole situation is extremely messy.
It is.
It's messy, but he's trying to put on a clean persona for the public. Like behind scenes, he's killing people.
I don't think there's any good outcome for him once Matt is revealed to be Daredevil. He either has to frame somebody else as Daredevil or disappear Matt Murdock. That's really the only way this works.
My guess is that he probably wants to do both.
I agree. If he can control. I'm sure he doesn't want Daredevil to become, even if Matt Murdock dies and Daredevil's gone, he doesn't want the legacy of Daredevil to be a positive one. And if Matt Murdock, everybody knows Matt Murdock, he's a nice guy. He's a great lawyer kind of thing. If you actually put those two together in the public's mind, then now Daredevil can't be anything except, that really awesome lawyer guy that's blind. And he wants to make sure that I think everybody thinks of Daredevil as and all vigilantes as just a bad thing. So,
and not only that, in this series, or in this season, what we've seen, Daredevil hasn't done that much publicly. Matt's been the public face. So Daredevil saves White Tiger's daughter from Muse, but that's covered up because she's the only one that's speaking publicly about it. Nobody's listening to her. He kills Muse, or he saves Heather from Muse, but they cover that up immediately. So actually, as far as the public's concerned, Daredevil's gone. There is no Daredevil. So I think outing him as Daredevil kind
of gives Daredevil more power in a way.
Yeah, right. Especially after he literally, like, everything he's been doing as Matt Murdock, it's like, well, yeah, he was Daredevil, but we haven't seen him as Daredevil. He's been Matt Murdock saving you from being shot, etc., etc.
Someone in chat just made the joke I was about to make. I was literally about to be like, well, he could go to Doctor Strange, and then I look over at the chat and it pops up, like, damn it, now it looks like I stole that.
It needs to be comic accurate, and he goes and rounds up all the Purple Man's illegitimate purple children and gets them to make it happen.
Or Ben Affleck Daredevil comes through a portal and...
I guess the issue is that Well, first of all, I think the singular best storyline in the entire season is Kingpin's storyline. I think that is the best one from start to finish. And the reason why I feel that way is that Matt's story doesn't feel as cohesive throughout some of the choppier moments, whereas Kingpin's refilmed stuff with Vanessa because they brought her back in later. She wasn't originally a part of the season. So a lot of that stuff was specifically made to flesh out the Kingpin story that we get. I feel like not only Kingpin was a stronger story than Matt was, but his supporting cast was better than Matt's supporting cast. That's what I think. Like Daniel and BB and Sheila and Bullet, whatever his name is, the guy that plays it. Is it Bruno? What's his first name? Buck. All of those characters felt more interesting to me than any of the people around Matt this season.
Oh yeah, Daniel was a great character. I was like, I am so invested in whatever ends up happening with him. I kept like anytime he came on screen, I was like, oh look, it's Big Balls. But
well, we know that eventually he's going to grow up to run a section of the New Jersey Mafia. So
right.
That's kind of.
And somebody in the chat said this. I think it was Matt, the film guy. I think episodes 1, 8, and 9 are clearly the strongest episodes in the season in terms of like visuals.
Yeah,
I think that a lot of the middle there was some good stuff in the middle of the season, but I think the visual cues that we got with like the changes in the aspect ratio and all of that, clearly that was a product of the people behind episodes 1, 8, and 9.
Yeah, like if they were going to turn this version of Daredevil into like a feature film, then that's kind of the vibe they would probably go with, right?
Yeah, I think it was visually far more interesting because I couldn't really give you any specific visual moments about the others apart from perhaps the Muse episodes.
And I actually think the one sort of filler episode, which was the bank episode, the one that you can kind of just take out if you wanted to,
Still pretty
that
good.
episode to me was arguably one of the best middle episodes in terms of like the between the bookends. As an individual episode of this new Daredevil season, even though I don't think it fits totally with the rest of the tone of the season, I think it was one of the better episodes.
And we never found out if he got did he get a loan from another bank? I don't know.
I was like really disappointed too in the side plot line between Matt and Heather, because the idea that she just ideologically ends up joining Kingpin because they just fundamentally disagree on something, like that is such a rich concept to do with something like that, and such an interesting way of like this is the person he's basically replaced Karen with, and unlike Karen, this lady, like, you know, this lady's a freaking fascist waiting to happen, you know.
Right.
Like, that's just so interesting.
One of the things that happens repeatedly in the comics that like I do think the show did pretty well is showed that he's only ever half a person for most people that in his life, you know what I mean? Because he is Daredevil, he's also Matt Murdock, and anytime he tries to like suppress one or the other, it doesn't go well, right? So he's been suppressing the Daredevil part, and you know, clearly started to go pretty badly for him. He's now I said after that the Muse episode, or the one after, I guess, where she's like, fuck Daredevil, he's a piece of shit. And I'm like, well, you got to break up with her now. Why haven't you broken up with her yet? You know what I mean? Like, she's going to sit here.
I thought she was actually using him specifically to get the vigilantes. That's what I felt like in the middle part of the season. I was like, is she just using him to talk to like these people that he's represented in court?
Well, I think again, this is where I wish they'd gone into it more. It felt like she knew he was Daredevil at certain points, but then clearly has no idea.
Right.
And like in episode 8, they sort of probed this the strongest, where he's literally ignoring her to listen into other people's conversations as she's telling him why she feels ignored. But I don't think they set that up strong enough either. I wonder if there's a backstory as to why she hates vigilantes that we might get in season 2, but I don't know. I don't understand. Like, I know what's the length of the relationship? I'm a little fuzzy on that. They've been going out a fair while, and if your boyfriend tells you that guy you think is so great is actually really not, he's evil, I would tend to be like, well, okay, I don't see it, but I will believe you, rather than just being like, nah, he seems fine.
Yeah,
especially because she knows he has experience with him, you know.
Right. Yeah. So, however, I will say that the one thing I did notice is that whenever it shows at the very final kind of little montage of scenes, whenever Matt's talking, he's talking about resisting and rebelling and stuff like that. And while he's doing that, it shows her in the midst of other people that are very clearly against Kingpin.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't help but wonder if maybe she's either, maybe not actually
A
fully on
psyop
board.
kind of situation or whatever.
And I think that's fine, but I think they've already set that up better with the BB character.
Mm-hmm. True.
Which is, and
the other thing is that she clearly knows that Kingpin is not a good person, because when she's talking to Vanessa, she's like, is he hurting you? Is he doing something to you? Kind of like that was the vibe she got. So I don't understand why she wouldn't assume that Matt was being straight up when he was saying that, Kingpin is manipulating people and stuff. She's clearly, as the therapist, she knows that this is what's going on. She's seen it with Vanessa. So it just seemed a little weird to me.
But Vanessa was also like really defensive of him in a way that didn't come across like an abused wife, like she was like, oh no, yeah, he's a lot of things. He's not that, So like,
well, maybe, but wouldn't Heather be smarter than that? I feel like she would know, right?
I think
she's a therapist. She's one of the best. She's like an author. She's made books about this. She can be tricked so easily by one line.
Psychopaths and sociopaths and stuff. But like the Kingpin and now apparently Vanessa are kind of next level sociopaths. They're, I don't know. Maybe they're just above her pay grade. But yeah, it was unclear. Like whenever she made that defense of Wilson to the therapist, to the Heather a few episodes ago, it wasn't clear why she was doing that. And now it's pretty clear that she was wanting him to become his old self again, essentially.
It's almost like when you wish into existence what you want someone to be. You know what I mean? Like you want that person to be this thing that you've made up in your mind, and they end up not being that thing. I think that's what we're dealing with here.
I tell you what this series feels like to me in certain aspects. Take away all the superhero stuff, and it feels like they're trying to be The Wire, but they're not quite willing to explore it as much as they do in The Wire. I mean, maybe that's just because the cop friend of the ex-cop was in The Wire, but...
well, let's talk about him, because, I will say that it wasn't... I'm not going to say I was disappointed, but it wasn't what I expected whenever he said, we're going to raise an army. And then it's like Josie and Cherry, and I'm like, okay, it's not what I was expecting.
And two good cops.
But like Cherry spent his whole fucking season just don't be Daredevil, don't be Daredevil, don't be Daredevil, and he's like, okay, you're gonna be Daredevil now.
Makes you wonder, like, what is that? Literally, is that the plan? Is just like to get all of the good cops to fight all of the bad cops, or is there like something else? Like, I almost wonder if there was somebody who was like obscured from there, or someone they're going to like surprise us with in the next season.
I'm assuming
execution. If they come back with season 2 and they're like, all right, we got all the cops that are against those cops, and we're gonna go like, well, hold on, you're just using cops? Like, that's it? I'm gonna be kind of fucking pissed.
Well, I'm assuming they're going to bring in Junior White Tiger. I'm assuming that because she was featured in that montage, so I'm assuming that she's going to take up her father's mantle. From what we've seen in show, I think the trouble is you kind of want Jessica Jones and Luke Cage to be introduced, and
what are they doing? Where are they at?
And to be honest, I would find it hysterical if they brought She-Hulk in. If just she turns up at the end to like whatever that little sort of piece of land that he's got, if she turns up at the end and just smashes it up and so it doesn't exist anymore, it falls into the sea, something like that, I would find it hysterical. But also, you don't want them to do that, because then it's just like, well, it's just a team up. So this is Defenders.
Not even in She-Hulk form. Just have her come in as Jen Walters, and she like did some kind of lawyering basically that made it so it's not it's actually legally part of New York now. So all that shit doesn't they can't
literally just identically recreate the scene from Spider-Man No Way Home where they're sitting around a table and she catches a brick that comes through the window. Like just 100%. She's just his lawyer and that's it.
Yes. Yeah.
So it's like what you want is you want him to raise an army of all the sort of street level super powered people, but then also I don't think there's a way of integrating that in a way that is going to be satisfactory. I don't know.
I mean, so in the comics, when Fisk was mayor, and when it finally ended after the Devil's Reign event, Luke Cage became the mayor, and so I mean they have a perfect opportunity to bring him in right there, but you know, that's justified in the comics. And I just realized now that like who got the White Tiger thing?
I'm assuming his daughter.
His niece, right?
His niece.
Oh, his niece. Sorry, his niece.
Yeah, but like, so I mean, yeah, that has to be where they go with it, right? Like, because I remember specifically them showing someone's hand taking it from evidence or something like that, and I don't know if it really ever showed who got that. So yeah,
it was one of the Punisher cops.
Very White Tiger.
We're gonna have a Punisher cop with the White Tiger thing.
Yeah.
Great.
Emphasis on the white part there. The whitest tiger.
Yeah. I mean, look, as long as they don't bring in the hand, just leave the hand out of this shit.
Yeah. I don't really want to see them sort of go down the hand or Elektra route and
she's alive again.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, she does become another Daredevil in the comics, but you know, it's actually kind of cool. Nonetheless,
would there be any legal wranglings if they never mentioned his name? You never saw him in his suit, but if they brought Tom Holland in dressed as Daredevil, just doing like fighty stuff, not using any of his spider powers, just sort of winking at the audience. That's all.
I mean, they need to bring in Mike Murdock for sure. 100%. Bring Mike. I want Mike Murdock, the brother that doesn't exist until he does exist, and then yeah, let's do it.
I kind of want to.
No,
sorry. Yeah. Okay, I was just gonna say, I kind of want to know if at some point they're going to recreate the panel of him with the "I'm not Daredevil" T-shirt on, because it feels like it's like 5% more comedy leaning in Born Again compared to the show. Like not extremely so, but like a little bit. I'm like, I don't know. I feel like I would not complain. Like if we're going down a slightly goofier route, which it feels like the next season's gonna have to if it's doing team up stuff. Like
no, it's actually really cool. You've got bad takes. I think you should rethink them and go somewhere else. Your takes are bad. Anyway, I wonder why my tail doesn't grow. What about Iron Man pretending to be? Yeah, whenever he was in prison the first time, that's what happened. Yeah.
Yeah, I just think I hope they nail it, and I've got high hopes based on the season, based on the final episode. But this is going to be so hard to land this second season because everybody's going to want something different from it, and I don't think anybody's going to be satisfied if it's just the characters we've already seen.
Yeah, they need to
introduce the army.
Several new elements. I think you're right. I mean, it's who knows, because I mean, like if you've seen some of the behind the scenes, like the leaked, I guess, set photos or whatever, he's in a different costume, which I don't know what that represents in the show. In the comics, when he's worn the black costume, it's been, I guess it really didn't. The two times that I know of that he wore black, it didn't really represent anything similar. So I don't know that it really.
Well, there's the Badlands situation too, right? Wasn't there a
Shadowlands? Yeah,
Shadowlands. Yeah.
Fucking get Shadowlands out of here. Now, honestly, like
I vaguely remember it. I didn't even remember the name of it, but yeah.
Daredevil has legitimately like the best best consistently fucking amazing run of comics. Like I'm talking about creative teams, one after the other. It's like Bendis, then Brubaker. Then who was after Brubaker? Then it was Charles Soule, I think, or was that no? Then it was Andy Diggle for a while. He's the one that did Shadowlands, and it's just kind of this turd in the middle of like. And then it goes to Charles Soule. His run was great. Then it goes on to Chip Zdarsky, which was great. And it's like, yeah, I don't know that there's another comic that has such an extended period of excellence, but except for that turd in the middle. That was where he just gets possessed by the beast from the hand or whatever, and he's not even really Matt anymore. He's just a possessed demon Daredevil, and not good.
Well, the other thing I wanted to mention, which is something I liked, and I got the sense that Eric and his guys didn't like, was I really liked how they handled the Muse storyline, and I hope that the character is dead, and I think it works dead. And my reasoning for this is because this is TV and not comics, he doesn't need to come back. Like, yes, he's a character that recurs in the comics, but why does he need to come back in the TV series when I think the purpose of that story would work well, and without powers as well. I preferred him to be just a normal guy who was a psychopath. But again, personal preference. But
I think Bullseye needs to be like the cockroach of the MCU, and just kind of pop up in various places. Because kind of what he does in the comics. You need. Yeah, I want to kind of get into anti-fan narrative and claim mode for a second, if you guys don't mind, because of this.
Fine.
So it's interesting. I'm very curious. Like, do you have someone on the inside of Marvel Comics that you've gotten this information from? I'm curious. Who is that? Like, where did you hear this information that's why they did what they did? You see what I'm saying, right, Eric?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I mean it's the same stuff. I don't really understand. But furthermore, like I don't understand why it's like there's a group of fans who don't like these short bursts of like alternate versions or different storylines, including characters that builds their story up by using elements from other people's story. Like, do you want her to just be this one-dimensional character, like she never does anything else?
Having just read where this all takes place, read why she becomes another Daredevil, it actually is the exact opposite of this. It is that Matt dares her because he's going into prison for a while after accidentally killing someone, but he turns himself in. He's like, look, I killed the guy. So I'm going to submit myself to justice. And when he does, she says that she's going to take care of the streets while he's gone. And he's like, okay, but don't kill anybody, basically. And she's like, basically out of ego, out of very Elektra-like ego and pride, says, oh, I can be a better Daredevil than you ever were.
Right.
Watch me just not kill anybody. You know what I mean? Like, and then that's what she does. And then it turns out as she goes about it, she kind of gains an appreciation for what he did and how difficult it's always been for him to do that or not kill people.
And it's something that builds her character in a different direction. Yeah. I mean, that's the point of a lot of these stories. I mean, I don't know. Maria, you seem very hell-bent on just like playing the devil's advocate on everything that we're saying.
Seems like one of these, I know a few things about what's happened in the comics. I haven't actually read it myself, but I'm going to come in here and say some very specific takes about them.
I feel like this is a criticism you could levy at like the original Black Suit Spider-Man when he became Venom.
Piece of shit. Sorry, not you.
Because like, why did they not just get rid of the Venom with the symbiote suit? Why did it have to become merged with Eddie Brock to become a different character? And it's like, well, that's the way the story progressed, and that made sense for that story.
The people that make claims like that, as if that's the only reason, is because they'll often say that, like, oh, they just did that because of this very reductive thing that I'm pulling out of my ass, when it's like, no, there's actually a lot of narrative, thematic, character substance to making a choice like that in some cases, many cases. Like, whether or not they do it or not, that's another thing, but like it's basically creating a new status quo or paradigm, temporary situation, whatever it is, that allows you to kind of look at these characters a different way, to evolve a character. It almost says to me that you just don't like stories or thinking about them whenever you say stuff like that.
I also think that there's an issue with like fans not being monolithic. Like, we don't all feel the same way about every single thing that we read or watch. And to just bullheadedly say this thing is bad and it ruined this blah 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 whatever leaves out the fact there are other people that might like it or enjoy it. It's just like you can't make a blanket statement about something that happens in comics and just go, oh, everybody feels this way, and it's just stupid.
Well, quite frankly, I stopped reading Batman the moment they got rid of his gun, because I thought they just completely wimpified the character and turned him into some sort of bleeding heart liberal that doesn't kill anybody when he should be running around with a gun. And then even worse, all those times.
Dark Side one time in Final Crisis, but it was like some kind of special gun. Anyway.
And then all those times as well that he used Alfred to dress up in his costume so that he could appear as Bruce Wayne with Batman there. I mean, I take that 1966 series to be complete canon. So as soon as they deviated from that, they lost me. So, I mean, it's like, pick your favorite version. There's always going to be different versions. If you don't like a particular story, you don't like that story.
Right, there's runs of things. But I want to say here, like this entire take right here,
She wasn't though. That's good that you don't like that, because that's not what actually happened.
And this, but that is completely illiterate to the media. Like you're misunderstanding what the story was doing, because this is not what was happening.
Well, I mean, somebody that says
she couldn't. She could still be Elektra, but that's not the point.
This is the type of person that I almost can guarantee you they like read wikis and watch YouTube videos, but don't actually read comics. It's almost guaranteed, because if you read the comics, that's not what it is, but you know enough about it to have this specific opinion. So you've clearly absorbed it from somewhere.
But also, it's like the purpose is to have a character grow in a different way that they couldn't have done on their own, which is why you introduce those elements, because she changed as a character for the better because of that particular run. And so to say that, oh, I just want her to go back to Elektra and go back to what she's doing. Yeah, but she went through all of that to become a better character as Elektra. That was the whole purpose. And to not understand that means you are not actually reading. You are doing the surface level, like I'm looking at the pictures and skipping through the comic book. Like that's what you're doing at that point.
So this isn't much different. I mean, like, yeah, sure. There's can be an argument made against anything, but like, which cases are the cynical ones, and how do you know they're cynical? Do you? I mean, I understand you read something and say that this feels cynical to me. Sure, that's possible, but like that's still just your vibe you're getting off of what you're reading. I might read the same thing and say, wow, that felt really sincere and heartfelt, and blah, blah, blah. Like, unless this is what I'm saying, this was the initial question I asked Maria, which is, how do you know? It's the same thing as I've always asked when people say forced diversity or whatever. It's like, oh, did you know about what happened behind the scenes? Was there a gun involved? They like have a gun to their head saying, you got to do this, motherfucker. Like, how is it forced? How is it an agenda? How do you know anything?
It's an unprovable claim about like 99% of the time. It's an unprovable claim.
Well, yeah, I mean, if you want to look at some of the cynical things that comic book companies have done, I would say multiple covers is an obvious example of a cynical thing. That's a cynical sales technique. I would argue
so much of the promos of Big Two comics is cynical, and like, and honestly, in a way, kind of is it both gets readers to get interested in whatever, or lapsed readers or people that don't buy regularly to buy stuff, but it also kind of, in a way, it's a double-edged sword, because it, every event becomes like, oh, everything will change, everything's the status quo, blah blah blah, and then it kind of maybe does change some stuff for a while, but not really for
This is what I was going to say as well. I mean, you could see as the Death of Superman event in the 90s as being a cynical move, knowing that they were always going to bring him back. But if a character had appeared that was more popular than Clark Kent never would have come back. The problem is the sales went off a cliff and they did the quickest correct they could. Whereas you look at a character like Bucky, who again, many people were furious that he came back to life. Absolutely furious, because that was one of the sort of things that you didn't do. Bucky was an always dead, and yet Winter Soldier now is a really popular character amongst a lot of fans. So
Spider-Man, that's another one. It's like, I mean, that's a different version from the main continuity one, but it's still Gwen Stacy, always the untouchable, dead girlfriend. And they've even a couple of times had some alternate version of Uncle Ben involved for just a minute in the comics, and it's like, that's kind of the inherent nature of, or I guess a consequence of writing stories that are ongoing forever, and the characters really aren't ever going to die. It's almost like people that make these kinds of complaints just kind of don't want the comics to keep existing, almost like they want the I don't know. It's really bizarre. Like they haven't thought it through, or they just don't care.
I think it's a combination of all of that.
You got to juice sales. You got to get people's eyeballs on this thing that's been going for 60, 70 years sometimes, and people get, either bored or move on or whatever.
And sometimes the big swings miss, and sometimes they hit. And when they hit, people forget that they were ever considered a big swing. Like
perfect example, yeah.
Well, yeah, like the whole death of Jason Todd thing. I mean, everybody thought that was again a cynical marketing thing, getting people to phone up, and
it's capitalism. It's all cynical to a degree, man. Like you're talking about the Punisher, for example. That's one of the things that Marvel's done that pisses me off the most, which is they had a character that was like just a really kind of lame, uninspired villain for Spider-Man for an issue, and it turns out people thought that was pretty cool. And they want to see more of him. Okay, you like this Punisher guy? Sure, we'll bring him back and we'll give him a tragic backstory about why he's doing what he's doing, and say that actually he wasn't really trying to kill Spider-Man. He was actually being kind of manipulated by Chameleon the first time that you met him, and that frees him up to be more of an anti-hero. Oh, and then during the 80s and 90s, we're going to give him like 4 fucking titles, one of which is just listing bullets and guns and shit, is one of those titles. You know what I mean? And like, we're going to be a little bit reckless with how much we, spray the Punisher, pun intended, all over the place. And then we're going to kind of forget about it for a while so that some fascists can say, I like that skull. and then we're not going to start suing people in time. By the time we do start trying to sue, it's too fucking late. Cat's out of the bag. We just created a new fascist symbol.
Although with you saying all that, I really, really wanted Punisher to kill every one of those cops in that final episode of Daredevil, just to bring it back. And I guess because I know it's not real, I can separate the real from the. I wouldn't want that really happening in real life. I would want them prosecuted to the full extent of the law. But in comics and in TV shows, I really wanted them to just kill them all. And it annoyed me a bit that he just ran into that one room with all of them in, just like with an axe. And then got caught.
Absolutely right.
This is true. Yeah.
But it was also like the reason he was created in the first place was because of there was a legitimate vigilante kind of craze in the 70s and 80s. There was that one guy that shot some dudes on the
Well, there's the True Life, and then there's also the success of films like Death Wish, which is basically a prototype for the Punisher, and Rambo, and
there's also characters like Lobo. Lobo was also like an anti-hero.
I think it was a Jackal. Critical Ops. I think you're right. And here's more of the shit that, like, you need to realize your subjectivity. That's the thing. You need to recognize what is just your subjective take on things, and also just you haven't read the comics, because I can tell you they didn't do anything to betray Elektra's essence.
Well, that's the point, is like,
opinion on what that means anyway.
You want character development, but at how? Like, she can't do anything other than these specific things, or it's betraying the character. Like, character development happens over time. Like, what would happen if Elektra were fighting a character and she lost an arm, right? She lost an arm in the comics, and Tony Stark had to build her a new arm, or she got one from Wakanda or something like that, and she had a mechanical arm. Would that make her no longer Elektra because she now has an arm that's not a human arm? Like, at what level, what point do these characters go beyond what narrow view you have of them in the comics? Like, what run? Who controls that? Who gatekeeps that? Who determines that?
I mean, that's a good joke. Yeah. Nothing bad ever came of any of the decisions made in the 90s. I think the industry lived happily ever after.
Yeah. I just think there's a weird, like, it's not even normal gatekeeping. It's like an entitlement. You know what I mean? Like, it's this entitlement that I see the character as this way, and anytime someone else does a take on it, it's bad unless I approve it. You know, it's a weird entitlement.
That this anti-fan content, I mean, look, this motherfucker just won't fucking leave, man. Going on from channel to channel, I keep blocking. But like, yeah, I've said before that fuck, I lost it now. I had it, now I lost it. You know what? Let's get back to Daredevil. Look, I feel like this is going to give me a splitting headache.
Oh, don't.
Huh?
Seriously, I nothing has ever affected me as viscerally as what we're about to talk about. So yeah.
I mean, I feel like horror movies. Like, I've seen similar in horror movies. Although
yeah, I know, but it's context, isn't it? It's all about context. You just don't expect that to happen.
So, do you think that it was unnecessary?
I don't think it was unnecessary at all. I think it was perfectly necessary. It's just I can still not like it. I think it was entirely in character, and I think
it was in character, and it was also, I think, like this. It was a statement of like, yeah, if you thought that he was never gonna, clean up completely, or if you were waiting for the moment, you were waiting for him to say, "All right, I'm coming out. Here's my coming out party. Violence rules the day. This is what we're about now."
It's a massive character moment, because not only is he doing it, he's doing it in front of a group of people, any one of which could have stopped him. It's a loyalty test as far as they're concerned.
Very uncomfortable too.
Yeah. We'll see how that goes.
Basically, like the Walking Dead Glenn scene. Yeah, it's kind of similarly.
Yeah, but again, that's a show where it's sort of expected.
So Commissioner Gallo, this is from Bloody Disgusting. Shocking death scene. How it came together. And it was not something that was in the original filming run, the original version. It came about toward the end, like of filming overall. And one of the funny things reading this article is that like apparently Vincent D'Onofrio was like fucking hyped to do it, and you can kind of get that. You see how when he talks about Wilson Fisk and playing him, he loves playing the character, he loves all that shit. So like they're saying that like they would show up on set or whatever, and D'Onofrio would come up to him like excited, like, oh, I had an idea about this scene, you know. It's like he's a little bit too excited.
He's such a strange person because he's very thoughtful and soft spoken in real life and quite a jolly chap. But the intensity he gives to his characters is just like, oh, I hope that comes from a purely acting place. But like, that's what makes him so compelling as well. It's like you don't know where the line is.
So I don't know how much anybody wants to know or see. I maybe shouldn't show this on camera because it does have like production photos of the effect and everything. I don't know if that would get me in trouble or make people throw up or something. But
well, I think YouTube might. Who knows?
So yeah, this is the death of Commissioner Gallo. All season long, Gallo was a thorn in Wilson Fisk's side, culminating in a final confrontation that saw Gallo unwittingly summoned to his doom. It's a pivotal moment, not just for Fisk, but New York City. He takes out an enemy in a vulgar display of power, Pantera reference, to galvanize his growing army of enforcers with nothing more than his bare hands and brute strength. And then it's got a little bit of an interview with the guy that plays Gallo. And he talks, the actor talks about how there's no real fight to it. Like basically by the time he gets in the car and sees the who's driving the car, the guy with the Punisher tattoo, he's like, oh, okay. Yeah, there's really nothing he can do at that point, and he kind of just resigns himself to it.
And again, with what we know about that character having the sort of secret wife and kid, it makes sense that he'd sort of would rather go out on his own terms and know that they had nothing to do with it and that his family was safe, I guess, is the motivation.
Mm-hmm. You hate to be the guy that there's one of you in like every stream, or at least one where you show up and you just want to say negative things. You hate to be that guy? Well, then stop being that guy. So let's see. Okay, so yeah, here we go. When we came on board in the second round of filming, this is the directors, the beat did not exist yet, and there was no hint at it. There was just some rather broad aims for where to go, but not even story aims exactly, just more how it should feel. Then as we started working with Dario Scardapane, the showrunner, the story started to come into focus, working from episodes 1 and working through the reshoots on the additional photography of the rest, and then 8 and 9. I think it was pretty deep into prep on episode 1, or even while shooting episode 1. And then it was just right when we read episode 9 or read the outline, and they're like, and we're going to crush his head. It's a simple yet vague description, wide open for interpretation. But one thing was certain, according to Moorhead, from the very first time the sentence, he crushes his head, was written, it was going to be practical. It's because we were directing it. We would very much insist on that. But I actually think most filmmakers would want this, because it just makes more sense. And actually, it's funny to say this, but the VFX department prefers it too. They prefer that you do as much as you possibly can in camera, and they just push it any further distance you need. It's not an effort thing. It's that they also believe that if you actually shoot it, it looks better. Better is a word to use there, I guess. But it definitely looked convincing.
Yeah, I don't think it would have worked in CGI at all. I think there's certain things with practical effects, and that's one of them where in CGI it would always look rubbery and cheap, even if they actually used a rubber model in real life. I think absolutely the right decision to make.
So yeah, we were pretty excited about it, but Vincent was even more excited. So what they did was they built like 3 different casts of his head and shoulders, kind of the bust situation. They had him sit there and said, pretend like you're screaming, like you're getting your head crushed. And that's what they built the things out of. And I mean, if nobody else is interested in this, let me know. But I'm fucking fascinated by this stuff. I love effects stuff, and I love horror. And because I was so shocked by this even occurring, that I was like, I got to know, how did this happen? So, yeah. Apparently, director Moorhead was the model for Vincent D'Onofrio to kind of practice on, not like his actual crushing, but just kind of what he was going to do with his face and stuff like that. And he said that even though it was kind of scary to be in that situation, that Vincent D'Onofrio was very gentle when he crushed your head. So,
I mean, that's still a lot of trust.
They shot it like 3 times, and they prepared for that. It just, they made enough whatever to do it several times. They did it with less gore, and it didn't look right. Everybody basically saw that and was like, no, it's not right. We need to do more. Yeah, they wanted it photoreal. They wanted it to be as, instead of like in a lot of head crush situations in various shows and movies where it just like becomes a mush of skull, they went more specific than that. And so the jaw situation, it was created to do what it did. And so like they created to give way here and here. So,
I mean, I don't know how anatomically accurate it was, but it definitely felt anatomically accurate. And that's the most important thing.
I mean, there was more of it than more to his role than that. I mean, I don't know. Watch it again, man. He definitely
and this is not the Punisher show. This is the Daredevil show. So the Punisher is a side character in it.
Okay, so I think I can show this. There's no blood applied to it yet, but this is the bust with like how, yeah. There it is. There's the head. You can see the jaw is kind of pre-made to give way there. It's pretty rough. Anyways, impressive, man. It's impressive. By far the most fucking brutal, gory thing in the MCU, I think.
Yeah, when they were saying that this was going to be the more violent than the Netflix show, I had no idea what they meant. So
yeah, that was.
Oh, that's what they meant, apparently.
Yeah. No, I mean, there's like the end of the bank episode where he like crushes that guy.
Oh yeah, that's a good one too. Yeah, that's
stuff
a good
like
shot.
that. It's like, okay, that's kind of what I was expecting when they talk about that. Like, yeah, we're gonna see some bones break and stuff. Cool. Was not expecting that. And I wish I guess they haven't shared it publicly, maybe, but like Moorhead says that he has a behind the scenes photo on his phone that if you ever meet him, ask him to show it to you, and he will gleefully show it to you. It's Vincent D'Onofrio, his hands covered in blood, and he's just smiling right after filming that.
Oh,
I don't know why they didn't use that in the article, but I kind of want to see that.
I mean, my thoughts are, as I sort of hinted at before, that D'Onofrio is either legitimately the most healthy man psychologically in the world, or he's completely nuts. Those are the only 2 ways I can see it.
Yeah, it's important scene, and I really do hope that any of the stuff that like the sincere, genuine concerns or the criticisms about this season, I'm hoping that they're going to kind of recalibrate and do some of that differently. I also hope that they I think somebody had said earlier, we all did agreed, I think, that they need to introduce some more characters and maybe bring in some other characters that we know already. Would probably be a good idea.
Yeah, I don't know how they're going to do it, but I feel like they've got a good hook on it. I think the issues that I had with that are not enough to sort of make me think it was a bad series. Obviously, this M person seems to think that we've got an opinion that we don't, but yeah, I don't think Born Again was necessarily better than the Netflix show. I don't think the two are really comparable, which is a weird thing to say. I think the Netflix series had its problems. I think a lot of times it was a little too slow and ponderous.
This one doesn't have that problem.
No. But I think some of the character development didn't quite hit in this one for me like I wanted it to. I don't think it did enough, and then in other respects it did. So not everything is the best thing ever or the worst thing ever.
Right.
I think this is.
I feel like Fisk's, for example, Fisk. I feel in hindsight of the finale, I'm kind of reframing the rest of the season and thinking that it does make more sense than I was thinking it did. You know what I mean? Although there's still some, like we talked about earlier, it's kind of some weird choices. Like, are they trying to convince us that he's turned a leaf or not? I don't know. Is it? Yeah. But it still kind of seems to make a little bit more sense. And then the relationship with Vanessa, we talked about earlier, what's his morality, right? And like somebody said in chat that his morality basically just revolves around he wants to fuck with Matt Murdock, Daredevil, and then he wants to, make Vanessa happy, basically. That's about it. So.
Yeah, Eric, you missed that first bit where we were talking about Kingpin. Do you think they were trying to set it up as he legitimately wanted to turn over a new leaf at the start? Or
I mean, I think that was a play to Vanessa, because I think she was viewing him as a soft individual, like he's changed since he left and came back. And she didn't see him as the same threat that she saw when she first met him. And so she was kind of taking over the reins of the business and enjoyed being the one at the top of the food chain. And then I think the goal was to have us sort of see, at least my takeaway from it, have us see him do all of these awful things, like, capturing her boyfriend and locking him up downstairs and then attacking him, and all of these things he was doing behind the scenes, to sort of bring all of that to the front for her, to then bring back that evil, vile Kingpin that we just hadn't really seen since the beginning. So I thought it was a really strong story. I actually enjoyed watching him come back, because, I mean, I'm assuming that everything he did in Hawkeye and Echo still happened, right?
Yeah.
That's all still canon.
Yeah, so he actually that in whenever he talks to Matt in like the second episode or whatever.
Yeah. So I'm just trying to figure out, like, I'm trying to remember all of those details. But yeah, it seems like he softened up for the MCU because those were MCU projects. And so they had to play that off like he's not the cold-blooded killer that he was before when he came back at the beginning. And I do believe that's why Vanessa sort of felt the way she did about him. And so I think he's had the singular best story the entire season, in my opinion. I really enjoyed his story.
I feel like with Vanessa, one thing that maybe could have been really cool, since they were doing the parallel arcs with Matt and Fisk too anyway, is to have a moment where, like, kind of like a similar, but like mirror a version of what happened with Heather, with Muse, kind of capturing her or whatever, and all that. Like if Vanessa was like, I don't know, maybe Muse could have got her or something like that. But she had some moment where, like, she, experienced some kind of violence, and that basically caused her to want to crave the old Fisk to come out, right? That would have been something kind of interesting. Something that would have precipitated her, like, being cool with that.
And I think that's something they missed on the Matt Murdock parallel story as well, is that nobody was asking for him to come back as Daredevil.
Right.
Everybody was happy with him being Matt Murdock.
I mean, like, the only person that really knew was Cherry, right? I mean, nobody else really knew. So
there was somebody that was asking him to come back as him.
Yeah.
Yes.
But like, without Foggy and Karen being there, it was kind of like nobody was there to support him as, like, the dual identity thing was such a tough situation this season because Cherry was the only person that knew. Other than
and then
Fisk.
Cherry was like right there at the, of course, I guess he'd recognized by then, but like it was still weird. I'm sure they'll explain it maybe in the season 2 why Cherry suddenly is pro Daredevil, but he was definitely against it the whole rest of the season.
Well, I mean, I would assume that the explanation is he looked out on the streets and saw what was happening.
Yeah.
Maybe he heard about Gallo's resignation.
Also, Kingpin gained weight back. By the end of the season, he's much bigger than he was at the beginning. I don't know if you noticed that or not. He's bigger.
As for this, I don't know. I mean, no, he doesn't have any powers. He doesn't have any powers in the comics either. I will say that in the comics, it's more. It's not literal powers, but he is said to. It's very often reiterated that what you see is not actually fat. It's just like a layer of
all muscle,
over muscle, and there's like
Basically.
several moments in the comic where he's like just fighting ninja and or whatever, and he's like just grabbing their heads and crushing their heads and stuff, and it's like, yeah, he's got some powers, even though it's not really supposed to be powers. But it just seems like inconsistent filmmaking, I suppose.
I mean, if you've ever seen any of the World's Strongest Man contests, they all look like they're fat, but they're not. It's all muscle. But yeah, I mean, you have to sort of take these things with, this isn't real life. This is a movie. This is a TV show. So
I mean, he's also much small. Well, not much, but he's smaller than he was, and even just in Hawkeye, he seems to have lost quite a bit of weight. D'Onofrio.
Yeah, he didn't want to put the weight on for it anymore, and they were okay with that, as far as I understand. Which, fair enough. He's not getting any younger, and it's not healthy to carry that much weight. So
I do
yeah.
think I don't know if this show's gonna, if this premise will sustain. Like, I mean, definitely think it could potentially be a great second season. But I mean, somebody mentioned earlier the back and forth of Fisk and Matt and stuff, and it's like, yeah, that they got to make it work really well. But like, it does have a expiration date. I think how many times they can do that. But it's just they I don't know. I don't know that they would have made the show without bringing D'Onofrio on, because people love him about the original series as much as they love Charlie Cox, I think.
Yeah, I don't know how you do a third season of this with Kingpin again, because isn't it just the same thing over and over again? I don't know who
you would sideline him and have Matt, talking to him here and there. They already did that too.
Yeah.
I think they're going to go big and then go home.
But the one thing which I want to circle back to, which is sort of the last thing I've got to say on it, is again something that Dyad in the Force talked about on their coverage of it, is how all the people saying that Kingpin is just he's obviously supposed to be Trump, and the point they made was that no, he's supposed to be a sociopathic fascist.
Yeah,
that's all they've done. They've just portrayed him using the techniques and methods of sociopaths and fascists. If you see a connection between him and Trump, what does that say?
That's interesting. I would not have thought about that. Wow. Okay. I mean, I guess if Trump supporters see that, then maybe.
I've said the same thing. If they see the parallels, do they understand that they're admitting that Trump is this way? I mean, like, that would signal for me.
That was kind of the point that I was making in my video about it this morning, is that, like, this is the way that you do a Trump parody, where you just represent the kinds of things that he's doing, and then those parallels are really, really easy to draw, but you don't give the Trump aesthetics, you don't do the, like, goofy comedy stuff that everybody immediately recognizes as a Trump parody,
Or even the good public speaking. Kingpin's a terrible public speaker. He always seems uncomfortable addressing the camera or a crowd.
Yeah.
So yeah, he's got none of that. But what he wants to do to gain power is fascistic. And so, this episode couldn't have been written before within the last 2 months, and yet is echoing things that are actually happening.
Let's be real. Trump's hands are way too small to crush somebody's head.
I also want to say that I think if people are seeing parallels between what Fisk is doing and what Trump is doing now, that means that these paths are predictable. You know what I mean?
They're literally predictable in the sense that they predicted in this show that a fascist would immediately go after due process, right? Which is an obvious thing to do, but they verbalized it in exactly the same way that Trump's borders is verbalizing.
Well, it's different though, because in the show, this fascist takes power of the city, and the first thing he kind of does is he gets, I guess the cops under his control. He gets the Justice Department working for. Wait.
Yeah, but what is different is in this one, he surrounds himself with sycophants who just tell him exactly what he wants to hear.
Yeah.
And gets rid of anybody who doesn't. And well, hang on a minute.
Well, but the biggest difference, I think, is also that all of the people that Kingpin is surrounding himself are already existing criminals and corrupt officials. Yeah. Every single person
except for Sheila, she did she did that turn at the end there where she.
Yeah, man, that was
well, she's his Jared though.
Wow, man, how many fucking bans are you gonna evade, dog? Bro,
coming back.
I mean, and also like always fucking side eye anybody when you're like, hey man, fascism is bad. This fascism that's going on right now, this is not good. And there somebody's like, yeah, and communism
But
sucks
correct
too.
me if I'm wrong. Communism and fascism are not even identical things.
There's
no.
some
I mean,
overlap, but in general, they're very different ideologies.
there's overlap in the sense that they're both like populist ideas, but one of them is a left wing, very individualist populist idea, and fascism is a very state oriented, nationalist.
Well, and also,
yeah.
communism has never really, for any extended period of time, been implemented, successfully, and fascism has. So.
Well, certainly not on a large scale. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Right. I mean, fascism is pro-hierarchy. Communism is anti-hierarchy. Like that, in and of itself, is a fundamental ideological difference.
And I mean, communism having elements of socialism in it, or being, I guess, an evolution of socialism, and then fascism uses the aesthetics of socialism. Speaking of fascism and aesthetics, man, check out Pillar of Garbage's new video if you haven't. Holy shit, that's a good one. Very good. And then I think that Chariot might have a similar one coming tomorrow or something. Oh, yeah,
coming soon, yeah.
Put me in, Coach. Oh, you're here. Shit, crazy. How were you waiting long? I'm sorry.
I was just enjoying the Daredevil conversation, enjoying witnessing that, having a good time.
That brief
funny thing
conversation
is,
on Daredevil.
I actually have to go to work, so I have to jump out of here now.
No.
So, yeah, it's always that way. But anyway, thanks everybody, and I will chat with everyone later on. All right,
everybody, subscribe to Eric Debunks and also Eric's Reloaded.
Yeah.
See ya.
In the
Oh, by the way, damn it, he just left.
Too late. I guess I'll get the spoiler off here. So
he's in my video that's going live tomorrow.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, he features in the video. There's a few great DJ clips in there.
Sweet. He does have good clips.
Anyway,
yeah, so,
I had to be here for the fascism communism discussion. I was chomping at the bit.
So yeah, like they're exactly the same, right? Is that right? I keep hearing that. Anytime somebody talks about fascism, there's always that one person that's like, and communism too. Like,
the main reason why that seems to happen is because of the perception of like the body count attached to governments that self-describe as communist. And I guess two issues I have with that invocation is like one, great example of this, the DPRK, Democratic People's Republic of Korea,
which is all four of those things. Yeah.
Is North Korea democratic? Do we buy that?
It is North and it is Korea, so it's got
Yeah.
that. No, never mind. North is not one of the.
It's not really Korea because really South Korea is Korea. So like
right, but do we believe that Kim Jong-un was elected fairly? Right, like this is effectively a lot closer to like a monarchist dictatorship.
Sure, he was elected fairly. He also literally hangs the moon and the sun, things like that. So
he literally doesn't poop. That's part of the. I believe that's part of the belief.
He's the best basketball player in the world.
It's kind of the same like shit that people will do with China or whatever. I mean, I especially you get this from Tankies or whatever, where you get this like, well, everybody in China is unionized, so that's like basically socialism. Is like they're unionized under the state, though they're not, or like it's not actually organized labor over there, as evidenced by like the working conditions. Like it's infuriating that authoritarian governments will just say there's something and everybody. Like without even having been propagandized to it. Well, I guess they are by other people, but without even the Chinese government like sending them propaganda, they're just like, yeah, well, I'll take Xi at his word.
It's the people that are like consider themselves, leftists or communists, and they think that like actually China's great because they're communists. It's like what?
Well, I guess it's super interesting because like first of all, like you have to be a heavy revision. Basically, you have to be like a liar or misled by liars to think that like the current day PRC, the People's Republic of China, is actually like communist or socialist. Like that's so off base. It's genuinely crazy. Like at that point, what do words mean anymore? But it's interesting because sort of pursuant to what you're saying, Malachi, like some of these defenders of these nations, as if they need it, they'll advocate for, for example, you hear this a lot with Soviet Union apologetics. Another thing I touch on in tomorrow's video, actually, you see this a lot. People seem to believe, like, to measure the progress, I guess is how I'd put it. Not a very Marxist idea, but to measure the progress, the social progress under the Soviet Union, basically in liberal terms. They'll say like, oh, quality of life increased, like life expectancy increased, more people were getting more food. You had some different kinds of, at least over certain periods, improvements for the treatment of women, for the treatment of gay people. Things like this come up a lot. And it's super interesting because, first of all, like there were regressive movements in the USSR to actually roll back some of that stuff, which is not good. However, what's interesting about that is that these are all basically like things a liberal democracy could also do, and in fact, things that they have done. So, like, it's contextually, I think it's sympathetic, but it's not really a good socialist argument. It's a good liberal argument. And to wit, by the way, if what we're concerned about is abuses of power, genocides, death counts, imperialist aggression, there's this country, and I don't know if you guys have heard of it. It's called the United States of America.
Is that one of the like tiny island, like Tuvalu sort of?
There used to be other, we'll call them cultures, nations, tribes in some of these regions that the USA currently occupies, and their autonomy, their I guess we would use the word sovereignty in a liberal context, not very well preserved, I guess I would say, and also great loss of life as well. And not just for Americans, but also very much even prior to 1776, even prior to that, well in advance of the establishment of any American identity, genocide was pretty rife in these regions. And when people talk about like the death toll of the Soviet Union and stuff like that, the violence of the Bolsheviks and all of these things, it's very interesting who's allowed to be violent.
Right.
It's kind of like if you meet somebody who is like a feminist who a lot of us would consider very unsympathetic, the kind of quote unquote man-hating feminist, right?
Sure.
The people who take issue with that, some of them are going to be more progressive, some of them are going to be more reactionary. But if a man talks like that, all of a sudden it's just the progressives taking issue with it, or largely the progressives taking issue with it. It's astounding to me how long, and I talk about this in tomorrow's video as well, how long Steven Crowder was allowed to exist in the right-wing blogosphere with like perfect cooperation from almost everybody. He had some beef shortly before shortly before kind of falling off with the Daily Wire people. But it's intriguing that his rhetoric was so welcome. That change your mind or change my mind meme, where it's like people would kind of alter the sign to be like whatever controversial opinion they had, change my mind. That meme comes from, in fact, I believe that exact picture of him on that exact campus comes from him going there and putting up a sign that said something like "rape culture isn't real, change my mind." Astonishing levels of misogyny, like the kind of thing that is disqualifying from any serious intellectual conversation. And yet this is pretty welcome. It was only after that video that went viral of him berating his wife, that then wife, I should say, that really, and I talk about this in tomorrow's video too.
Well, don't spoil it. Make them watch the video.
It's well over 2 hours. I think I don't
Make
think
them watch the whole 2 hours. We've been going for 2 hours and they've been enraptured. So.
You gotta tease them. You gotta give them little breadcrumbs.
Well, what I was going to say was it's kind of like the commodification of absolutely every single thing, giving everything like a value. So Steven Crowder had a certain value regardless of what he said up until the point where the whole situation with his wife and the Daily Wire happened, and then his value dropped just below that threshold where certain people found it intolerable. And it's like as Bob the Old Way said, with capitalism having a body count, somebody's life is, we would think, has the highest amount of value. But under capitalism, if somebody dies as a result of a certain thing, we can say, oh, well, but then those same people, if somebody dies as a result of something else, will say that's the worst thing that ever happened. So,
well, it's also who we attribute blame to, right? If somebody dies under the USSR, ignoring the fact that they weren't even socialist anyway, but like they're like, oh, that's socialism's fault. But if somebody dies under a capitalist regime, it's like, okay, well, what was he doing? You know, what factors did he cause to make that happen? You know.
To be clear about Crowder and his loss of value, if it had been, because the only thing the right cared about, and at that point, and you know, look, it seemed to work out for them so far, and still care about, I'm sure, is power and the you know, being perceived as culturally relevant, so that they could attain power. And so therefore, if enough people had responded positively to that leaked video of Crowder, you know, cursing out his fucking pregnant wife and calling her names and making her walk or to wherever the fuck, then they would have been fine with that. They would have propped him up, because that's the line that their morality rests on. Not actually, like, there weren't like a bunch of right wingers going, "Oh, how dare he?" That's
so much for objective morality.
Well,
yeah, they're like, this is going to look bad for us, and it's going to potentially damage our attempt at gaining cultural power. So,
and the perfect example of sort of what I was suggesting is the Luigi health insurance murder thing. He is villainized for shooting this guy, which is, if indeed he is found guilty, then that is murder. But all of the death that guy was responsible for, that word responsible completely sort of shifts any sense of blame, and therefore all the lives that he is responsible for destroying is less valuable than his own life being taken from him by somebody shooting him. And it's this weird thing of like the whole sort of development of using money as opposed to bartering is, how can you judge how many chickens is worth a goat? And we've done that with everything now. Everything has this commodified value that is sort of argued about, and I mean, that's where the problem lies. Everybody's values, literally in this sense, are different.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess like to that. First of all, amazing. Like that's a clip right there, Ryan. I think that's so good. But like, the two things I'd love to say about that is, like, first, there was this 19th century philosopher who, in one of his books, he has this note where he says, and when he's talking about like capitalist economies, which, you know, if you put it in context at the time, the idea of like the gold standard, which was much more dominant. He says, and now these governments produce these notes. He's talking about like paper money, the idea of dollars, in that way specifically. And that's so interesting to me that he specifically made a note of that, because we see exactly what you're talking about, where there's this increasing kind of abstract into the pureness of the representation of value. First, you have like things like gold as kind of an intermediary of value, where if you have two commodities, these things both have values, but if you want to trade, it's useful to have like a go-between, something that connects them, so you can sort of measure them both in that other thing. And then, of course, if that thing is really really representative of value, then it's a little bit more convenient to have a note, to just have a piece of paper with a number on it. And then, of course, once you've got that, it makes a lot more sense to just have numbers in computers in a digital age. And now everything is so abstracted that sort of we're dealing in pure value. We're in a land of ideas. And it's super interesting that in these discussions, I'm going to connect two things that were just said by Dane and by Ryan and Malachi, because you guys were kind of going at the double standard of kind of the way we talk about the PRC and the USSR versus the USA. And Dane kind of brought up another double standard with like kind of the way that conservatives talk about like men and women. And I think there's kind of a gendered component there. These are basically, I think what we're getting at is this, they're kind of the same thing. Some people get to be individuals, other people are groups. It's basically the logic of Orientalism. Like we are the individuals. We have individual philosophies. We have individual outlooks, and any misbehavior on part of anyone in our society, especially if they're from a what we'll call, I don't know, privileged or a centered group as opposed to a marginalized group, their actions are the actions of individual thinkers. And if it's outside that group, now all of a sudden we're dealing with barbarian hordes. Now all of a sudden these people, they all think the same. They're like this, generalistic.
So this actually just connects directly. I mean, it's exactly what the topic was on the Fabcast a couple of weeks ago. This is Morgan, I think Morgan had written, and I'm going to get that and clip that probably today and upload it. But like it basically, the title of the stream was "You Are Not American Anymore." And so like what you're saying is, you're individual versus, the horde or whatever. And the way we're talking about it is the same concept, just like you're not the shrinking category of what constitutes being an American in the country. You know what I mean? So like essentially you have to have the specific views and in order to be, otherwise they'll have you deported or have you arrested, or you know what I mean? Like it's becoming a smaller and smaller category. Anyway, sorry, don't want to interrupt you anymore.
Yeah, no, I think that this was voiced earlier, but that's a function of fascism. That's the, I don't know, the George Costanza pool shrinkage of liberal rights, basically. I do want to say super duper quickly, because it's kind of starting to get passed over in the chat. I want to go back. User RXNV really made a couple really salient comments here that I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly, but I'm just going to spell it out. There's a couple comments here, and I'm just going to read. To be fair, the PRC's attempt at a communist society turned to be such a disaster that it had to introduce capitalization to their economy, which also helped create the greatest economic growth any nation outside the US in the 60s has ever had in human history. I mean, the Soviet economy was a shallow, broken mess by the end. Yes, there is actually, and this is a bit esoteric, people here might not all know, there's actually discourse among communists about this specifically, because some of the socialists of that era had a thesis about how to actualize socialism. And through that, they developed an ideology, and we usually summarize this in a single phrase: socialism in one country. The idea that you can even have a socialist country. This is an ideological position. There are people who don't agree with this. They think that if you wanted something communist, I mean, you're talking about societies without states. You're talking about almost like a nationless world. The world would be so radically different from the world that we understand. It engenders questions of how do we get there? What do we even do? What is the movement? And this is why there will be people like left communists who will say things like, we call communism the movement to abolish the present state of things. That's a quote that gets mined a lot. But I do think it's quite valuable because it gets at kind of what it means to be left wing, really, that you've got these injustices in your society. You've got these, or to use less moralistic language, you've got conflicts in society. And the point is to resolve the conflict in a certain direction.
Yeah, I mean, that's why like woke became synonymous with just anything not on the essentially far right. Whenever what's his name? Ron DeSantis had to legally define what woke meant in Florida. Like it literally was defined. They defined it as just essentially having any kind of criticism about the government, or the way things are done with the government in the country, like, or just not, it couldn't have been more obvious that they were just trying to, this is the seed that we're planting for fascism. Yeah. I'm trying to understand what RXNV is talking about here. What is fairly wrong, pretty wrong about how trade works? What are you referencing there? Also,
I'm not entirely sure, but it sort of ties into what I was sort of going with this, where if you look at Marxism, the idea of the proletariat controlling the means of production, and how in capitalist society, and again going back to what I was saying about value and sort of commodification, it is seen as far more valuable to take the risk of building a factory than it is to be the people that work in that factory making it a success.
Yes.
And that is how in capitalism it's valued. And so, and it's all so complicated as well, because certain things contradict other things, and there are elements of capitalism that work, but are they because of capitalism or in spite of it, or just a coincidence? Could they work in different political ideologies? So, and I think that's true of every single different political ideology. There are elements that definitely work. And so, are you going for the perfect system, or are you going for a blend, or are you going for a system better than the one we have now?
It does seem like in right wingers' minds, like they're going for like a pure system. You know what I mean?
What
like it needs to be purely capitalistic, purely merit based, even though it obviously isn't either one of those what we have right now, and hasn't been like ever.
Well, that's sort of the like one of the frustrating things about a lot of discourse surrounding like leftist politics and stuff is that they view it as this idea that we're like aiming for a literal utopia or literal perfection or whatever, when like if you look at things that Marx wrote, like he was very much of the opinion that capitalism was a step up from the like feudalism and mercantilism and everything like that. Like, you know, I mean, generally speaking, like even just from like a conflict theorist's perspective or whatever, and you know, even like a long arc of history type of a deal, like it was, each of these things was an advancement in terms of like workers and labor having more power than it had yesterday. And so I think that, I don't know, I view a lot of like leftist politics, even revolutionary leftist politics, as still ultimately being advancing towards that cause rather than some sort of like immediate perfection and stuff. And I mean, I think that a lot of the things that Marx wrote kind of aligned with that anyway. He wasn't like a super huge, like it, most of his writing didn't focus on here is how the perfect society is going to be run. It was, here are the things that society has a problem with that need to be fixed. Or, you know, in his opinion, need to be fixed.
Well, I guess the thing I'd say about that is like with Marx, two, I guess, minor errors that people make in interpretation is he's not an overly deterministic thinker, and he's not, which I guess is my objection to what Bob said, my gentle response to that. But he's also not an overly moralistic thinker. So the idea that past systems had to happen, Marx does have this quote, I will say, with a little sympathy for that perspective. He does have this quote where he says, it had to happen. It couldn't have happened any other way. That's a quote, again, that people use a lot. But I do think that when he's talking about like stages of historical development, he's retroactively looking back at conflicts that arise from social situations, that arise from conflicts. The idea that every conflict had to resolve itself in a certain light, and that we should judge these as like good or bad, is not really how he writes about history. But I do have a rebuttal to RX Envy in the chat. I'll just read these comments super quick. But before that, actually, to be fair, this is all pretty wrong on how trade works. The idea is that as long as you have basically opportunity costs, like in a world in which doing one thing stops you from doing another, you need a way to I'm tongue-tied. Need a way to contabilize how much is each action worth. And that, as long as you have a limited ability to produce things, aka you can either use this machine to do A or to do B, then goods need a value. And the worth of doing an action upon said good needs to have a contabilized value. So this, I believe, and you hear sometimes liberal economists talk like this, but I think it's a fallacious argument because it attributes intent to a system.
Right.
This is one of the reasons why like historical materialism is important to Marx, actually. And I think some of the perspectives that I'm seeing in chat, I will say, like, reading Marx does, whether you agree or not, it does address some of these ideas. So like money is a universal unit of account. Like the issue is that in a world where I think you mean transactions of goods exist, you need a way to make sure you know, how much two goods are worth in comparison. I don't like this phrasing because you're right that one of those things arises from the other, that X goes to Y. The if then statement is correct, but the idea that these are things done by rational actors, that these are systems that are designed to work a certain way, that's not really a thesis that is cooperative with historical development.
I've got an example of this as well. Let's say you've got two people. One has a vial of insulin and the other has $1 million. The person with the vial of insulin doesn't have diabetes, and so that insulin is worthless to them. But the person with $1 million has diabetes, and they're about to go into a diabetic coma and die without the insulin, and so they're willing to pay $1 million. Does that mean a vial of insulin is worth $1 million?
It's entirely subjective, right? Contextual.
It for Marx, I think he would say that the value of the commodity is fixed at its point of purchase. So the given thing, its value, right, is basically what somebody paid for it.
In that moment, it was worth $1 million to that one man. But like
that's kind of a retroactive
in a larger context, right? It doesn't really
about
apply to anything else except for that specific example. So yeah.
So the value of something is always within reason subjective. Once you've got past the point of how much it costs to produce, how much because you'll see this in sort of, if you ever watch any of the antiques programs, the values of things over the years goes up and down depending on how desirable they are, even though the actual object itself has not changed and has no inherent value. It doesn't do anything anymore. It is an antique. So how do you judge the value of it?
So scarcity is something that, like, I mean, that's kind of, from my view, that's the main reason why capitalism is just kind of bullshit at this point, because our problem is more distribution now, but not even really that, because we can distribute things pretty fucking efficiently these days. It's depending on what we're talking about, scarcity isn't such a problem as it used to be. There's distribution. So I don't know. What do you guys think?
I guess I'm really on this, whereas before I didn't really like the way that argument was being phrased about commodities and our economic system. Now, this point, like especially time is a limited factor, and you need by that factor to choose between doing multiple things. So this is actually fascinating. There's a great, and I know not everybody wants to like sit down and read like every volume of Capital. Completely fair. You know, people like, you need context for that. You need time. Like
there's more than one volume. Jesus
there's three.
Christ.
There's
I'm
three,
so
and then there's some extra. Well, there were going to be a lot more actually. Unfortunately, Marx passed away, but he was doing a lot of writing about this. It was one of the reasons why he's so. But this is a great comment, and if you want a little bit more insight into how Marx views that exact remark, there's actually a great video series, but you can look it up as a single video. It's by a channel called Capitalism 101, Capitalism with a K. It's I think it's called the Law of Value, which is kind of how Marx's theory is treated. Sometimes people say labor theory of value. That's actually an idea that predates Marx, that sometimes people attribute to him because they're contrasting the economic discourses of his period with present day ones. But actually, there's a great section of that video series about the Marx's phrase socially necessary labor time. And this is super important, and is one of the reasons why I like this comment in chat so much. It's super constructive to actually like how things like price points and value are determined by these economic systems. So yeah, really agree with that. I think that's a great insight.
Now, I don't know how everybody's feeling, but do we want to talk about Superman? Because we've been talking about fascists already, so it seems like it might be appropriate to segue to Ben Shapiro, who loves communism, and he's a big fan of Marx, from what I understand. That's the guy I'm thinking of, right?
I have no comment on that.
I wish I had a punchline for that, but it just came off the top of my head, so I don't. But he certainly is somebody who watches media.
I will say, like, first of all, I obviously, by how I'm talking, people can probably tell. I think left-wing philosophies, academic discourses, and just ways of thinking are super useful, and are in the time we're living in are going to be increasingly useful. However, because of the way the kind of reaction against presidential administrations works and reactions against the ascendancy of political movements works on YouTube, you're going to see something start to happen, which is a bunch of left-wing content creators are going to start making videos that are meant to be like educational, and they're going to be, it's like, hey, let me teach you about this idea. Let me, present this to you. When you watch a video like that, a lot of them are good and correct, and a lot of them are lying, like even maliciously lying. As somebody who's participated in a lot of those discourses, thankfully not so much anymore, but for some time, the ability to distinguish between these two categories, they're very difficult. Sometimes people are just mistaken about things, and that's okay. It happens. But there are left-wing content creators who are going to tell you things are true. They're not true. And that's a problem that you're going to see, not as big because the money isn't there for it. Not as big as the right-wing kind of grifter sphere, but you're going to start to see a little bit more of that in, I think you've kind of already in response to the election, but increasingly it's going to happen.
There's been, data that's showing that basically there is for the first time on YouTube, there's a spike in just progressive and leftist content that's like growing faster than right-wing content for the first time.
Yeah, I mean, I hate to use this poisonous phrase, but it's so important to do your own research.
Yes.
And what I mean by that is don't go to what's most popular. Look for the really boring stuff, because the people who are boring are usually the ones that are telling the truth. As a general rule.
Yeah, and also, like, sometimes people will say things that you can fact check quite easily. Like, I caught a popular anarchist YouTuber just straight up spreading out, like, I think, in my opinion,
tell us the name.
Non-compete. American Johnson. Like,
that would not surprise me in the
about
slightest.
That motherfucker. I'm sorry.
And actually, Anarcho-Pack, in a much more specialized way, corrected him with a lot of facts in a video essay about anarchist ideas. One in particular, I don't remember the exact contours of that video essay, but
the guy basically, never mind. I'm not going to get into the whole.
Well, and also his, I think now former partner, Luna Oi, another person who actually in her home country, Vietnam, has some right-wing political affiliations, but because she talks about Marx and because she's Vietnamese, a lot of Americans think she's super left-wing.
Yes.
It's not really true.
They both talk like Vietnam is just like this fucking socialist haven or something, and it's like, it's not that hard to fact check these things. And I mean, it's got quite a bit of capitalism going on there.
Well, and I mean, like, they're like some of the things about her that I know now, I would not have known if I didn't literally talk to Vietnamese Marxists. Who were able to show me, like, hey, here's like a selfie she took with some far right people in Vietnam. Like, this is the kind of, it's like if I was taking selfies with like some of the people that you guys talk about on this show, that would be conspicuous. And it's just, like the way that a lot of this stuff let's just say, be careful.
Definitely be careful with I'm so glad to hear that it was somebody that I pinpointed as somebody not to trust a long time ago. Like,
I mean, you do have to be able to like step outside of your ethnocentric worldview a little bit to be able to interpret like any, and this goes for like foreigners who are watching American content as well, like to be able to understand that anybody coming from any position that you're not immediately familiar with is inherently capable of both greatly educating you. Well, yeah, like from both angles. One, they have the potential to come to things from a completely different perspective that helps you to see the ways that your society fails at things, but they're also very able to take advantage of the fact that the average American sees Vietnam as a monolith, sees China as a monolith, etc., because that's just how we see things, like, oh, they do things different over there, that kind of mindset. And I don't know, it's one of those things that like immediately gets me anytime someone's like, this person is literally from X country, don't you think they know more about it? And I'm like, no, they definitely do know more about it, but that's potentially it's the same thing, like a bunch of white people taking Candace Owens' word for everything, and they're like, well, she's a black woman, she should get it. Like, yeah, she does get it, and that's how she lies to you. It's because she does know these things.
I'm willing to extend. I do believe with many of these the leftists that I've encountered in 5 years of being on YouTube and being in and around these communities is like the ones that end up kind of where EJ is, and like just with a lot of really silly, kind of like inverted, weird takes on stuff. Like, I think they maybe started out from a good place, and they kind of just like were too willing to listen to, someone like it's this Vietnamese chick talking about things from an outside American perspective, and like they get a little bit too poison pilled against America. And like, not to say that there's any reason to fucking just be in love with the country, but like there's a lot of valid things to criticize. And I think some people kind of get stuck on those, and then get stuck on like, well, somebody outside of America must have a much better perspective on America than I do, and so I'm just going to kind of buy everything that they're saying. I don't know. I think that's my theory anyway. But
well, I think we can. Again, if you don't feel like you're up to it, but I think this Ben Shapiro Superman thing gets to the heart of the sort of thing we're talking about, but in perhaps a lighter way, because I think he does exactly what the sort of people that you're talking about do. So yeah,
that was a brilliant sentence. I think this Ben Shapiro Superman video really gets the heart of what we're talking about.
Well, yeah, I think it does, and I think it brings what can be a dry subject to some people to life a bit, because if do you have the clip, Dane, or?
Yeah, I do. Well, I'm just pulling up on the screen.
Dane's always got the clip.
Superman deserves better. He's seen the movie, I guess, right? Oh no, he's literally just reacting to this scene that was released the other day. So
there's a great
he's screaming in pain.
Channel out there.
Oh, sorry. On him. Okay, I don't see the purpose of this. 2 thumbs down. Very disappointed.
He doesn't see the purpose of this out of context scene.
I understand. The markets are putting me in a bad mood. Also, I want President Trump's plans to succeed, as I've said 1,000 times here on the show. President Trump is doing too much important work.
He just admitted to the subjectivity of his opinion here. The markets are putting me in a bad mood, while he's reviewing a scene from a movie that isn't out yet, and he's just determining that movie's bad. But you're in a bad mood, Ben. You got your knickers all twisted. So maybe if he's watched it in a better mood, you might like it more.
Someone get this man a Snickers.
It's incredible that like he just throws that in there about Donald Trump. He's like, well, the markets are putting me in a bad mood. So he knows that what's happening is harmful. And then he says, but I want the plan to succeed. And it's like, well, if your glorious leader's plan is to resolve perceived, not even real, perceived issues in American trade that, internationally, I mean, that like his plan for that is to just kick himself in the nuts until everybody gives us everything that we want. And you're saying you want his plan to work? It's incapable of working. Like, you're an idiot if you say that.
Well, because what he wants out of it is different than what we want out of it.
Well, yeah. I mean, he's basically saying here. He's basically saying here, the guy who shot my dog has put me in a really bad mood, but he has offered to buy me 2 dogs at some point in the future. So that's a bonus.
To be fair, that's literally in the Pentateuch. That's the story of Job. So he's actually, I would believe that he would think that.
Yeah.
God, Emperor Trump. It's I wonder if it's just the markets, or maybe it has something to do with some of this information that's come out lately about the Daily Wire. I don't know. It could be something. Is it because Jeremy Boring has sunk a shitload of money in this Pendragon cycle thing, and you guys don't even know how to market it outside of your own fucking immediate right wing audience, probably maybe something like that.
He's like, oh well, there goes my retirement money.
Right. What was I thinking, letting this guy have so much control?
By bad things happening. And so I'm in a bit of a bad mood, I'll be honest with you. But I decided to do something that put me in even a worse mood. And that was, I watched the new preview for Superman that was put out by James Gunn. And
I think maybe a little bit of context that he's not going to say that is important is that Ben wanted to be a writer in Hollywood for like most of his young life. That was his goal, one of them. He wanted to write films and stuff like that. And, obviously he's not doing that. So I just assume that probably to some degree informs his perspective on these things.
As you all know, not a huge James
Philip's
Gunn
comment in chat.
Finding
How
Guardians-
much did Lady Ballers cost again? Talk about kicking yourself in the nuts for money. Jesus.
I don't know. I mean, how much did it cost? And then like the week that it came out, I have the clip somewhere because it's so fucking amazing that they do this and they don't even realize that they're talking about it. I think it's him and maybe Jeremy Boring. And they're like, we went to try to do this. Is basically they try to do it as like a Matt Walsh type movie at first, where it would be like this documentary, quote unquote, where they trick some team into letting men pretending to be women onto the team, but it turns out they don't actually let men onto women's basketball teams or whatever. It's like, did you just sink the premise of your movie while you're promoting it? You know what I mean?
Oh yeah. Well, not only like because they weren't willing to go through the hormone treatments required, but he also specifically said they won't let actual men onto these teams. And it's like, it's one of those things where it's like that little slip up, like you realize like he doesn't internally think the way that he claims to outwardly.
Yeah, well, he corrected himself like that once about I think it was Caitlyn Jenner or some other prominent.
It was some model, I think, because you're talking about when she was on the cover of some like. God, why can't
he was objecting to something and he just called her a woman and then he corrected himself.
Mm-hmm.
It's like that's almost as priceless as that time that I think it was Az on Friday Night Tights was like there was something they were looking at that had a trans woman and he didn't know it and he's like, oh yeah, he gets all fucking horny for it and then later on finds out and he's like, oh no, that's no, I wasn't attracted, but like you obviously were attracted to her.
Yeah. Well, that guy does love talking about cock, so I kind of feel like
it's true. He talks about dick a lot, and for some reason Eric July likes to hear that. I don't know. I'm just saying they have a show together. Is all I'm saying.
The galaxy was all sort of like.
Sorry, I was just gonna say that feels like a really bad premise for like a raunchy 80s movie. Like the two of them like secretly being gay. I don't know. That's just really fun.
Like Rip and the Silverback or something. Wait, no, that's the name of their show. Yeah.
For context, Eric July is the brick. That's an in joke about his community.
Oh no,
Silverback Mountain.
It's Rip and the Silverback is what the name of their show.
I thought you said brick.
that is funnier. He is the brick. Like remembering the lore though. That's great. I love that lore. Yeah, he's got this weird beard thing going on that like in certain angles the specific bit just right underneath his nose is darker and more prominent than the rest, and it just kind of looks a little bit Hillary certain angles.
Ridiculous humor, kind of gonzo humor. People unsurfaced his old tweets that were kind of jokey, ugly tweets in early days of Twitter. James Gunn, based on those old tweets, was actually fired by Marvel. And I will say that I publicly supported the idea that he should be rehired because you shouldn't cancel people based on jokes that they made back when Twitter was a jokier place.
Okay, so he doesn't like jokes in movies about Superman, but he likes jokes on Twitter. But then also, what does this have to do with the quality of the film or the scene that you watched? It's just like watching any other chud, right? Like one of the chuds that we talk about, they're always going to talk about all of this background information about the filmmakers and stuff like that. When it's all leading towards poisoning the audience on what they're talking about.
Oh, great! Sorry, Bob just said something in chat that's really great. Insane that the guy who made Lady Ballers thinks he can Game of Thrones and Arthurian fantasy book series out of obscurity by only marketing it to conservatives. Yeah, wow, that really does sum it up, because like his whole thing, like Ben Shapiro and the Daily Wire guys, like their whole thing is we're gonna like allegedly, right? I'm not saying they believe this, but this is how they act. Allegedly, we're going to compete with like mainstream Hollywood by giving these non-woke
Ben
conservative.
Shapiro has said that he wanted like something along the lines of, you know, giving Disney a run for its money.
Oh yeah, well they'll say that.
Yeah.
I think it's interesting though that like that when the conservative money doesn't equal mainstream success, it kind of reminds them like know your place, basically. You know, like you take money from far right billionaires, crack the whip.
I mean, if they really wanted to truly destroy sort of their idea of liberal culture, they should just try adapting some liberal media, and that would be sure to destroy it.
Yeah. I mean, look, the fact is that Asmongold gets 100 times the views on his shit that they're getting on YouTube. This is a billionaire funded, you know, just propped up, glossy, pseudo intellectual, enterprise, you know, kind of just attempt at creating an intellectual front for the right wing talking points, right? And then a guy with fucking blood on his goddamn bedroom wall from his gums and like casually picking roaches off of himself while he streams and goes, like that he's getting the fucking views.
I mean, to be fair though, Asmongold does have the eggs factor, and by that I mean his head is exactly the same shape as an egg.
Well, it's interesting that like Asmongold, guys like him have kind of started to steal the thunder of guys like Ben Shapiro, and I think you're absolutely right to point that out, Dane. But it's fascinating because Asmongold has a very simple formula for content. First of all, he's a React Andy, so the hard work gets done by other people for him for the most part, because he's not like adding that much else. But when he does stuff, like you play a video, pause, and say something absolutely foul, but then he does this constantly. Like if you actually, I can't believe I had to do this for this video, but like if you actually sit there and watch Asmongold, he'll say something just foul, and then he'll like turn away from his monitor to like, I guess, look at his second monitor or his chat or something. And it's so interesting because I think he's like saying the worst thing he can get away with that will please his audience, specifically because it positions him a little bit to the right of a guy like Ben Shapiro or like a Tim Pool, who like, this was pointed out somewhere. I think it was by Matt Leck on the Majority Report. But guys like that seethe every time somebody moves to their right. Every time Tim Pool's audience is like, "Oh, you like Israel? Well, you should debate Nick Fuentes." You know, like he can only go so far because it's all like right wing billionaire money, and even those people have some interest in stabilizing the grift economy, as opposed to just like sliding to the right over and over again. Whereas Asmongold, like he's got no principles and no real loyalties either.
Well, I think there's definitely like a pretty big point in there too, with the fact that in like, you know, from 2016 to like 2020 or so, like the stuff that Ben and them were saying was like somewhat groundbreaking for just like modern political discourse. And so they felt like real people who were, you know, speaking their mind and like standing up. And it was kind of a point that I made in my video on Brett Cooper leaving or whatever, is that like she was successful because they intentionally cultivated a very like real humanizing sort of image for her, right? They made the set look like a bedroom. They did all of this stuff to make it feel like she was just like some Gen Z like vlogger who just owns like 6 cameras apparently. But like nowadays, like I was noticing this just as we were watching, like all of the different camera angles and shit like that completely ruin the artifice of this being a guy sitting down to talk about a movie trailer he saw, right? Like nobody goes out and sets up 3 different angles to be like, hey, I didn't like this movie trailer. Nobody does all of that stuff. And so it just comes off like he's a guy who's paid to tell you what to think. And I think that's why someone like Asmongold, or in the anti-fan space, any of the like other, you know, whatever grifter channels that we talk about, like all of those come off like a bunch of guys speaking their mind. And so no matter how dishonest, no matter how unprincipled they are, like you can't fake having horrible body odor, unwashed hair, never having brushed your teeth in your life. Like it's hard to fake that. And so it makes them come off as like real people just saying what, you know, what these guys have always had going on in their heads, but are too afraid to say themselves. And
well,
like,
it's an extension of that. And I said this whenever we talked about the Daily Wire's kind of seeming implosion that was going on. Although I think they might have stabilized. They might have had a injection of billionaire money or something like that since then. But we'll see. Is that this all came about like this change in the content that like is happening because all the chuds generally are also seeing their numbers reduced. Even Nerdrotic, who hit 1 million subs last year, he's now not getting quite as many views as he was. And I think that, but specifically when it comes to Daily Wire and this type of content, they only, if you think about, you got to think about fascists and just generally the right, they're fascists now, is everything they do is about attaining power. And that's the only reason that they do it, right? They'll say anything, they'll do anything. So like for several years, they propped up the cleaned up, buttoned down, well-groomed, pseudo-intellectual Daily Wire type shit because that's what they felt like they needed to do to, be part of the discourse and inject these ideas and grow their base and stuff like that. Then they won. Now they don't need this shit anymore. They want the guy that's just speaks to who they are, which is a gross fucking, incel, nasty motherfucker that picks roaches off of himself and doesn't actually have anything of substance to say and doesn't even like they do on Daily Wire pretend to have anything of substance to say. They don't want that shit anymore. So they're relaxed. They're watching they're in their fucking element now. Anyway,
new Superman movie, and we can watch this preview together. It sucks. It's bad. I hate to break it to you. It's just it's terrible. Here we go. So for those who can't see, Superman is wounded and he is lying on the snow. The original preview, it just showed at this point Crypto the dog arriving, but this preview is much longer. Here comes
Crypto the dog.
Oh, the super dog. So Crypto arrives, and then Crypto proceeds to, for well over a minute, beat the living hell out of Superman. He's screaming in pain.
What?
Yeah, well, you've got to remember that fascists don't really like pets. They don't really require the warmth and comfort that having a pet, so they don't understand pets. So as far as he's concerned, Crypto is attacking Superman as an Alsatian might attack an intruder.
And also, what is that? Well over a minute?
Yeah,
like, what is the point of that? What is the point of that lie?
It's a lie, objective lie, yeah.
What, maybe 15 seconds?
Like, this has to be the worst nightmare, the absolute worst fear for like a wealthy right-wing person. Because here we have a dog that a cop can't just shoot to death, right?
Yeah.
Here's a dog who actually loves its owner.
I thought you were saying that here we have Superman, kind of like one of the most, in terms of American iconography, like he's Superman is it. He's one of them. You know what I mean? And they potentially, James Gunn might potentially make a film that manages to capture, the public's imagination in a way with Superman that he hasn't been in decades and decades, right? It's possible. And then, man, they would not like that. That's a pretty big symbol to lose, right?
Yeah.
It jumps on him.
I saw some people complaining about this too that weren't even like chuds, and they were just like, the way they presented it the first time was it's a very serious scene, and now it's got all this comedy. They changed it from this to comedy. I'm like, no, it's both things. Like that's what James Gunn does well in a lot of ways. Is like he kind of weaves back and forth between something funny and something, serious and dramatic and heartbreaking. Like that's kind of one of his skills.
It also feels like super real in this. Like this doesn't feel like TV show comedy where it's like a joke that's written. It's like, yeah, everybody who's owned a dog has had that sort of like moment with them, and it can be both funny and also like kind of endearing to their, to like your relationship with your pet or whatever. Like I was
going to say exactly the same thing. Yeah. And anyone who's owned a pet will know that a dog in particular, they get so excited when they see you for the first time if you've been away for a minute or a week.
Yeah, well, it's also like this reminds me a lot of that Mahler quote about The Last Jedi, where he says, don't make your audience feel more than one emotion at once. It's distracting. And it's like, damn, what a fuck. First of all, like, way to be like, I know nothing about films and storytelling.
No, not he doesn't. It's not. I know nothing. It's I know exactly one thing at a time about movies or about films and storytelling.
Jesus Christ!
The emotional bandwidth of like a teaspoon.
No, I mean, I've literally said before that Mahler is he's to pretend he's being objective about everything when really to me he comes off exactly like a teenager, maybe early adult who hasn't experienced enough life to really even understand a lot of the stuff that he's talking about. Like he has little to no life experience that's relevant to like discussing the I don't know plots of movies essentially.
Well, Mahler's a clown because his videos make more sense if you actually play circus music in the background.
I mean, he's the epitome of that Garth Marenghi meme about subtext being for cowards.
He literally said apparently with his last Jedi.
Subtext is for liberals.
Yeah, that themes don't matter. He believes themes don't matter. And this is meanwhile he also said when talking to Nerderotic about Deadpool and Wolverine and how it's objectively worse than Ahsoka for some reason. That it is he's following what is it the meta narrative and how these things damage culture. So that makes sense to him, but themes of films don't matter. The kid is basically fucking delusional at this point, is how I see him. He's bonkers. Anyway.
And continues to nudge him, bite him.
Why would you say he's biting him and then show him biting his sleeve? Like, that's just not what's happening.
So this is not dramatic.
Oh, well, why? I mean, we can answer why. Like, why did he lie? Why did he say that? Because the purpose of all this content is to sour people on this stuff. So
like, it's so unimpressive. Like, I feel like even 2016 Ben wouldn't just like inaccurately describe this is legitimately like RK Outpost levels of disinterest in the, you know what I mean? Like it's
they might be watching stuff like that to try to get tips on how to do it, more successfully at this point.
Like he's not just being dishonest, he's also being like incredibly unprofessional about it.
Definitely leaning into the fact that he knows that so many people that watch YouTube don't actually watch it, but they're doing other stuff.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say. Is
because I don't think he's describing what's going on as a benefit for those with visual impairment.
No, well, that would be woke, right? Like I think it's he's doing that because that's why this video exists. That's what that it's for, the audience that wants to be told a negative thing about a film they're not going to watch.
They're not going to go out of their way to like try to disprove any claim that he makes that is negative. They'd be more likely if he made a claim that seemed positive in some way to be like, wait a second. But like, I just noticed the decade of Daily Wire here. 10 years was a pretty good run, Ben, And also, there's literally, I don't think any evidence of that at all. They definitely are in ideological cahoots, and they've aimed for the same end goal, I think, but not necessarily together. That we have now. When you talk about Friday Night Tights and InfoWars, yeah, there's some evidence there, but that's another.
Well, I will even say this was like something that surprised me. They're not entirely in lockstep on certain stuff. I know FNT and like the Critical Drinker aren't directly synonymous, but like the Critical Drinker won't misgender at least a binary trans person. Like he doesn't do that. But like the Daily Wire will at this point like tear into you if you do anything other than that, like there are levels of respectability there that certain people
there is that one, that Jinx Monsoon clip that I
no yeah, but you see, like if you watch that, Will is just being like an absolute coward and like not saying anything. If you watch like his most recent video, at least that I saw on Doctor Who, he correctly genders one of the trans writers on the show. Like he literally says, this is a trans woman. She talked about this or whatever. So it's like, not only did he correctly gender her, like he was willing to attach his name to it, which I think is such I mean, it's an interesting thing. I think in part just because he's trying to not he's trying to like couch his, critiques in accurate, in like a whatever objective criticism and not the bigotry, but like,
there's a reason he's got over 2 million subs and the other guys
Mhm.
don't. I mean, that's probably one big one because
Yeah.
he does go to the extremes that aren't, that they go for that low hanging fruit. The other guys want that reaction of like, he said the thing about the trans person, when Will is, I don't know if he's mindfully done this or what, but he seems to have had, larger goals in his mind. So
It's just silly and ridiculous. Okay, and then finally, Crypto figures out that he needs to take Superman back to the Fortress of Solitude. Every James Gunn joke is a Monty Python joke. Just lasts 3 times too long. So now Crypto is dragging.
There's no joke.
Body.
Every James Gunn. What do you say?
Every James Gunn joke is like a Monty Python joke because it lasts 3 times too long.
But
What Monty
3
Python
times too
sketch
long.
is this from, Ben? Quickly, like.
Also, there's no jokes there.
Yeah. Like, is your dog loving you slapstick comedy and nothing else?
Yeah, slapstick
yeah.
comedy,
Why
a
is
thing
it
Monty
funny?
Python invented, of course.
You ask why this is funny, and it's because most people have experienced a dog that just gets, especially a puppy, that's so fucking excited to see you or whatever that like it can't contain itself essentially, and it's fucking cute. And people, that's just one of those purely good memories that a lot of people will have.
But
That's
yeah,
why.
I mean, Crypto has a neat little narrative arc in that opening scene for the trailer, which is just like he shows up, he's happy to see Superman, he behaves as a dog might, right? But then Superman gives him his cape, and the dog fetches, like he retrieves, right? He's gonna take him somewhere where he's not, lying face down in the snow, freezing his butt off.
This is actually a perfect example of the difference between, regular film writing and then like what the Daily Wire's bullshit has been. Because if you know about the behind the scenes of the Crypto, the inspiration for Crypto in this movie, it's that James Gunn and his now wife actually got a rescue dog that was a fucking terror. Like other than being when it was being cute and adorable and stuff, when it wasn't, it like tore up a computer of his or something. It just like tore up all kinds of shit. And they got it, they started training it and stuff like that. And now he's mostly pretty well behaved. But while that was going on, he was writing the film. And so that's when he made the decision to make Crypto, not just instead of just being the Crypto that people expect, where he's like, oh, it's a cute little noble dog. No, let's give him, some fucking he's a little terror. And except he's got superpowers too. So that's gonna be fun, right? And so that's literally a guy taking it's a corporate entity, Superman, DC Comics and all that, but he's inspired by real life relatable circumstances that he's putting into the movie. Meanwhile, the Daily Wire does Lady Ballers, because all their shit is just, politically goal driven. Wow. Man, they're gonna turn around pretty soon. The Daily Wire, I think they're gonna make it. It'll be okay.
Through the snow, back toward the Fortress of Solitude, which arises from the Arctic. And
that's awesome, Ben. You want to say it's awesome? You do.
Yeah.
That is. I mean, I wasn't particularly impressed by any of the additional stuff we saw in that sneak preview, because it is just like a couple of minutes of actual footage from the film. But that fortress scene, that was spectacular.
Yeah, it's I mean, it also addresses like the whole like, well, if everybody knows the Fortress of Solitude is out there somewhere, why doesn't somebody just go to it? Which does happen in the comics quite a bit. Well, what if it was
the films?
Anyway, so what was the connection you wanted to make with this?
It'll come to it's a bit further on. It's when he's talking about. In fact, I don't know if you want to skip to the bit where he's actually reviewing the clips and.
He's not reviewing it. So I do want to talk about, like, outside of whatever Ben Shapiro says about it, some of the reactions I've seen to this stuff, that like people think that that the sunlight is hurting Superman. I literally saw somebody thinking that like, oh, they don't understand that sunlight actually makes him powerful and it wouldn't hurt him. And it's like, well, what if he has broken bones, man? And then the sunlight is healing those bones. Like, do you think that would feel like nice and tickly? It just no imagination whatsoever. I don't know.
No, I even saw people correct.
I believe.
What's that?
I said he also has eyes, I believe. Light can be bright.
True.
I
but he's
like
screaming as the sunlight's hitting him, like he's writhing around and stuff, because it clearly says what injuries he's got, right? Like the
Oh
robot says.
yeah. Sorry, in that other part of the trailer, yeah.
No, I like.
He's still. No, sorry.
I was just gonna say no. Like I saw people who were even correctly interpreting what that scene was, and were still angry about it because they were like, Superman would never scream like a little bitch like that or whatever. And it's like, I don't know where this like idea came from that if something is powerful enough to damage Superman, he wouldn't like feel pain from it, you know? And it's just, it's not only like no imagination, it's this weird obsession with the idea that he's like cool and badass and nothing, you know.
I did not see this coming. Fucking, what are you doing, dude? Jesus Christ. Like,
good Lord, what is happening in there?
You're trying to make some point, or are you just going to be a coward? Say it, man. Say what you want to say. I'll give you a chance.
Oh, I didn't even see the earlier one, too.
Come up in there carrying.
Yeah.
Jesus.
Thank you. No need to thank us, sir, as we will not appreciate it. We have no consciousness whatsoever. Merely atomic bombs here to serve. Meet 12. She's new.
He looked at me.
More of the lack of stoicism. Stoicism is not an irrational, sociopathic coldness to all stimuli, right? Like, that's not what it is. So it's not, if you're expecting Superman to, like, when he's been severely injured, we don't know what injured him in this context. We don't know. But if he's been severely injured, that, like, you still expect him to be stoic. Like, and he kind of is, considering how injured he is being a bit stoic during, while he's laying there. He doesn't start, emoting really until the sunlight hits him. And it's just like I imagine a bit of a rush and also painful at the same time.
Yeah. Real men would never make noises when they break all their bones in their body.
I hear you. I mean, look, what Critical Drinker, I've already gone over plenty of times how he views stoicism as fucking ridiculous. Like he considers, Riggs from fucking Lethal Weapon to be stoic. So come on, man. I'm waiting for you to come back with an explanation for these comments. David under duress.
I'm confused. I'm trying to think if he was trying to be like, if he was trying to be sarcastic there.
I don't know.
I don't think so. It's weird because the one before that is about him hating Ben Shapiro, and let's be perfectly clear on this. Ben Shapiro's Jewishness has nothing to do with why we don't like him.
Yeah, just okay.
Just kidding about what?
A little bit of those a little bit of the edgy humor in chat, but
yeah,
probably not probably unideal for literally having a disagreement with a Jewish man.
Yeah. Okay. I guess. Yeah. All right. Well. D minus, man. I was want to say.
Yeah.
You did do a portmanteau. I get it. Right. If we can't tell if you're being anti-Semitic or just trying to do a little joke, then work on your material. But you get a pass this time.
With a healthy dose of yellow sun, we'll have you up and at 'em in no time.
I mean, this is such a cool concept as well, amplifying the sun to power him up.
To be more mindful about what he's saying. So, oh, we're dramatic. Okay. Well, I guess we're good at being dramatic, so you could try being good at comedy, maybe. Anyway, what were you saying, Ryan?
I was just saying this is such a brilliant concept as well, having the light amplified to heal him quickly.
Yeah, this is directly from, I'm sure it's from lots of stuff, but like there's a lot of this taken from Absolute Superman, which is, in many people's eyes, one of the definitive Superman takes, Grant Morrison. And I'm excited for that just because like so much of the stuff in the Fortress of Solitude is really neat in that run. I'm hoping we get to see lots of cool stuff from it.
And I like the way it looks as well, that sort of futuristic, that retro futuristic 50s idea.
I like his costume in this trailer. I don't know if anybody said that, but it's a little more colorful.
This might be it.
Appeal to the past. There it is.
the entire attitude here is wrong. The entire attitude is wrong. Okay, the gold standard for Superman movies remains the original Superman in the late 70s by Richard Donner. By far the best Superman movie, not close. Better than Man of Steel, significantly better.
Yes, absolutely. That's what I mean. Not absolute all-star. I'm sorry. I'm getting a little bit tired here. Also hungry, but
I mean, Ben is not wrong when he says that the first Superman film that they made, well, the 78 Superman was...
And then they do other takes. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
it's a beautiful thing about these characters.
Yeah, I mean, there's plenty of people who like Man of Steel. I personally prefer the 78 version to it, but then the 78 version quickly went off the rails. So,
I'm not I've said it a couple times before. People are surprised by it, but like, I'm really not a fan of even the first one. It just doesn't do it for me as far as like what I like about Superman. I mean, I get it, like the general vibe of it is Superman, sure, but like when you're talking about, I don't know, I flying backwards and spinning the earth around, time travel, all that shit. It's just like, what? Superman's cool enough that you don't need to introduce crazy shit like that.
Well, I agree with that. Yeah.
Then the second one, of course, there's like the cellophane S on his chest that he throws around the guy with no explanation whatsoever. Just, oh, here's the thing you can do now. It's bonkers. And yeah, I really wanted Man of Steel to be the one that I related to, that I was like, this is my Superman movie, and it about maybe half is that. And so yeah, I'm looking forward to this one, thinking that might be the one, because I do love Superman. But it hasn't been a film that I don't know, hasn't been my Superman film yet. Anyways,
yeah, he hasn't got the really stupid bit yet.
Okay.
Because it gets right the idea that there's a solemnity to Superman, that he is supposed to be the embodiment of America. And then the second half of the movie shifts into a more comic book humorous mode.
He's not supposed to be the embodiment of America. He's supposed to be an ideal for people, to aspire to.
Well, yeah, absolutely. I mean, the idea that the solemnity as well. I mean, he's a goof throughout the film.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't say he's solemn. When he has the interview with Lois Lane on her balcony, he's cracking all sorts of jokes.
Yep. And when he's Clark,
with her.
Basically a fucking one of the Three Stooges.
And it's very, the color palette is very rich and very bright.
Cool.
Man of Steel, they basically desaturate the entire film. So
this isn't Man of Steel. What's that got to do with anything?
He's doing the Shadiversity thing where he pretends to review a movie and talks about a different movie. What the hell, man?
Right. He doesn't like. I mean, he's solemn as fuck in that movie. Jesus.
Yeah, that's true. And doesn't he get that from watching the video that he has literally just seen, that this is much more closely color palette wise to the Donner Superman than it is the Man of Steel Superman? So maybe context clues help here, Ben?
I know that this is kind of a petty and silly thing, and it really shouldn't even be anything I mentioned, but like, I just don't like how his eyebrows aren't ever the same. They're just like, one of them's doing a different thing. I don't like it.
Color palette is grayscale and kind of ugly and dark, and the entire character of Superman.
Everybody thinks that about the Snyder movies. You're not going to find disagreement there.
Man is much darker. The attitude here is totally wrong. It's just Guardians of the Galaxy in a Superman suit, and that ticks me off. It really does, because as a lifelong fan of the Superman brand, let me just say that it's not that hard to get Superman right. He's supposed to be the embodiment of everything cool and heroic about America, and of course,
right, that's it. Well. No, he's not. He's not supposed to be everything charming and cool about America. He originally was created with truth, justice, and the American way to exemplify those values held at the time he was created, which are very different to the values that America currently holds. His values don't change, America's values do, which is why he drops the American way at a later date in the comics. So
I did do a bit of looking into the history of Daily Wire, Ben Shapiro, and Superman in previous times that he's been covered. One of them being in 2021, I guess, whenever Superman Smashes the Klan came out, which is a graphic novel series that's not in continuity, but it is very good. And it takes its inspiration from the real life situation. Not a lot of people know this, but like in the I think it was the 50s. The radio program, the Superman radio program, maybe the 40s, did an episode, like the radio show, where he's, fought what was the Clan of the Fiery Cross or something like that. Very obviously KKK stand-in. And, basically that seems to have depopularized the KKK in a lot of people's minds from just that show. So in a way, Superman did actually, undercut the real life Klan based on fictional media. So this comic that came out a few years ago is kind of a love letter to that. Tells a story of these Chinese American immigrants that move into a new town or whatever, and there's a Klan there. The Klan is there.
Oh, I think I read this.
And
finally,
yeah.
a comic book I've read. Oh my god!
And so apparently, they said at that point, Daily Wire said that it's not suitable for young readers, which is weird because I've read it, and it literally is suitable for young readers. There's not anything, overtly graphic or any cursing. It's actually very wholesome in general. I guess just maybe the presence of Nazis, because the first thing you see is him fighting a Nazi guy in like a mech suit. And so he knocks that thing out too. So I don't know what they would take issue with, but
I mean, as I think a point which you've made before, Dane, is that at certain points in his early runs, he was fighting evil corporate overlords. He was fighting
words, abusive husbands. Yeah.
That was Superman's values, and his values haven't, or basically are the embodiment of, very similar to Captain America. It's the American ideal, not American values as they are at any point in time.
Ironically, I'd say Superman in his original appearances was more down to earth and like of the common person than Captain America's ever been. Like literally, like he broke into a nearby prison where he had gotten heard word that they were exploiting children, and like the cops were involved with the system with the prison owner or whatever, where they were like arresting teenagers who weren't really doing anything and trumping up their charges, getting them put in there so they could work, put them to work or whatever. Yeah, stuff that actually happens and has happened recently that's been exposed and stuff like that. But Superman would break into the prison or whatever, and then find evidence and beat up the fucking warden, because back then he didn't have nearly the power level that he does in the comics now. So him beating up somebody wasn't murder. Anyway. There's this, I don't think we have time for this, but maybe we'll cover it Sunday on the Fabcast, or maybe I'll cover it Friday. There's this post in the subreddit for Behind the Bastards. Great podcast. If you haven't checked it out, you should. And at first I thought it was real. I don't think it is, though. It's the Daily Wire's Superman leak. This is from 7 months ago. Some guy posted this, where like apparently the premise of this fake post is that the Daily Wire has had a leak, and they apparently Ben Shapiro had written a script for a new Superman film that he sent to DC and they rejected, and it's got kind of like the summary of how Ben Shapiro wrote a Superman script, and it's kind of wacky and fun. But
didn't they just end up adapting that into The Boys?
Jeez.
But yeah, it's just as an example. So in 2019, Ben Shapiro, co-founder of Daily Wire, approached DC Studios with an offer to write a Superman project. And then it just becomes kind of it becomes more and more obvious as you read that this is not real, because it's somebody that's not on the right, from Ben Shapiro's perspective.
I've just seen the line providing Shapiro himself providing rudimentary concept art using Microsoft Paint. So
yeah, Lois Lane. So Lois Lane, a military brat, growing up around various military bases, she would always act out to get her father's attention, sneaking out and using her big mouth to get her in and out of trouble. Lois goes to college to study a double degree in journalism and intersexual feminism, the former her father's subtle suggestion, the latter a blatant attempt to piss off her father. At college, she becomes a progressive liberal. The rift between her and her father, like.
Sorry, just to be clear, like, for anybody who's, I guess this isn't real, so it's probably not even worth clarifying. But like, you don't major in intersectional feminism. You would major in women's studies or women and gender studies.
And basically, the way that quote unquote Ben Shapiro has written this version of Superman is that he literally is, like all the best things about America and stuff, and that like Lois thinks he's a dumb hick, and it's pretty funny. Oh, look, Jimmy Olsen here. Raised as a spoiled coastal elite from a family of rich, socialist liberal arts professors. His home is filled with participation trophies. Perry White, there he is. Jesus Christ. I don't even know who that is. Who's that woman?
I don't know.
Oh, it's Vivek.
Yeah.
Yeah. Has more diversity check boxes than you can shake a stick. Anyway. Yeah, maybe I'll look at that.
Oh, the Patrick Warburton one was upsetting.
What was?
Oh, just the fact, just that because he's aligned with the Daily Wire now.
Oh, yeah, that is.
I'm just like, oh, didn't want to think about that.
Yeah.
Yep. Oh my God. All right. Now that we've gotten to Rush Limbaugh, it's time to end the stream.
Breaking out the Necronomicon for that one.
Yep.
I probably better head out. I got to get to work at 6. So.
Oh.
It's been real, folks.
I know you got a new video up today. I started watching it, and then I had to realize I had to start preparing for this stream, so I will finish that later.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. Yeah, I've got a video on Daredevil, Born Again, just like the finale that came out today, and how impressed I was that Marvel went as far as they did, just from like a political perspective. Daredevil's kind of working its way into everything right now. I'm working on an analysis of the Conquest fight scene at the end of Invincible Season 3, and I'm using Born Again as a reference for like how to do character monologues better than the comic series does. Better than the Invincible comic series does, which I know is maybe not necessarily a fair comparison because Born Again is kind of legendary and Invincible is not necessarily that. But it work. I don't know. Hopefully it'll work anyway. As always, I just posted a brief little snippet on like the YouTube community post thing of brief little snippet from my book. So appreciate people checking that out. It's been kind of cool. I've had a video popping off, so I've been able to like click on the document occasionally and see people reading it, and it's like. It's kind of nice. So, but yeah, other than that, I'm edgier than thou. You can find me at edgier than thou on a variety of platforms, but YouTube mainly.
Oh yeah. By the way, I read that.
Oh,
yeah.
Oh, why? Thank you. You can, I appreciate that. Thanks.
I guess I had forgotten to say something, but I remember reading it. It was the one you linked in the description of the video, like that document.
Yes, I did. I think probably next week I'm gonna add a little bit more to that. To like, basically, I'll just put out a post, be like, "There's more available now." So if you want to go back for a couple more chapters, but it's not like the exact final version. It will be actually fairly significantly like edited from what it is, but it's a good kind of introduction. There's a lot of like telling in that bit that's not going to be in the final version, but that I was like. I'm not gonna go in and take all of that out when it's basically just like I don't even know, a brief little like introduction sort of deal. But I appreciate anybody checking that out. It's always like, I don't know, it's really cool. Occasionally people will comment and be like, I read it and here's my thoughts. And I'm like, oh my God, thank you. But that's about all from me, folks, I think.
Cool.
So I will be seeing you soon.
Have a good one. Good night at work.
You as well.
Yeah.
Y'all take care.
And Chariot, you said your video is coming tomorrow. Is that right?
Oh yeah, it's a big one. It's gonna be a big deal. Also, I recently I featured in the video Pillar of Garbage uploaded the other night.
Excellent.
So yes, and he gave you a nice little shout out as well. So
hell yeah.
You joined the ranks.
It overlaps with the one I've
mentioned in a Pillar video. Welcome.
Hell yeah.
We are an elite few, and I love this thumbnail here. Did you have to search really hard to find that?
Well, actually, I've seen enough of Jordan Peterson's content and enough interviews with him and enough like streams and stuff where I immediately knew where to look for that, which I think says something about me.
Or it's about
I
him.
think it says more about him, yeah.
I mean, because like, look, it clearly Boromir feels he's saying something very, very important right then, right? So I guess that's what Jordan's doing too. Yeah. Speaking of Jordan Peterson, real quick, there's I'm sure seen the Pangburn debate with Matt Dillahunty from years ago, right? But you guys,
No.
anybody? Oh, Jesus Christ!
At least I don't think so. I mean, it might have gotten lost in my forgetful memory.
I mean, it stands out in my mind as like he has a complete fucking, I mean, not complete meltdown in like the sense that you might expect, but or when I say that, but he is obviously very, very nervous and uncomfortable and can't like he's trying every dishonest, bad faith debate bro tactic against Matt Dillahunty, who's just being straight and asking for, you know, rationales and stuff. It's I've never seen him more exposed for being the fucking, you know, charlatan that he is, Jordan Peterson, than in that debate. And like Pangburn just posted a clip from it again earlier today or yesterday, maybe, that was like, you know, Jordan Peterson never really recovered from this, did he? And I was like thinking about how there was that. And then within a year or so, I think was whenever he had his benzo coma and, you know, Russian, you know, blah, blah, blah. And he really hasn't. It's kind of just his arc since then has been more and more deranged and you know, Two-Face Batman villain type suits and stuff. I don't know. It's worth checking out. But Ryan, nothing but media.
Yes, I will have my next video, my next Rockford video up on Saturday, and I think it's probably the most political that Rockford has got so far, where he directly addresses what the Second Amendment is and what it isn't. I don't think it's any spoilers to say one of the last comments he says on it is, where's the effect of the Second Amendment isn't about grenades, automatic weapons, and dynamite. And it's interesting to see just how much opinion has shifted amongst the right wing on those issues now. And because it's about him, he basically encounters a group of militia, idiot militia, and
being redundant.
Well, yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean the NRA definitely changed their priorities, and which changed the view of the Second Amendment, I think.
And the video after that is also fairly political as well, so that's going to be an interesting too. But I'm also working on, and I'm not going to promise when these are coming out, but slightly longer form videos. I'm going to look at The Untouchables and why it, by all accounts, should be a terrible movie.
That's what I haven't seen, and I've heard it is a bad movie. Is it not?
No, The Untouchables is a masterpiece.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
No idea.
Have you really never seen it?
No, I've never seen it.
You should watch it. It is brilliant. And it's got no right to be. And that's what I'm sort of going into. Because I want to talk about the idea of how there is no Hollywood formula for what makes a good movie and what makes a bad movie, because there are so many factors involved. And,
because if there was, then there would just, like, it's so stupid a premise to think that there is, right? Like,
yeah,
to talk as if there is, because there's a lot of money that goes into these movies, and if there was a formula, they would just do the formula every single time. Like,
I mean, N2B 1986 makes the first point that Kevin Costner, that was his first big role, and so you've got an actor in the lead who's never had a successful film. You've got a director.
Arguably, a lot of his successes were kind of lucky, to be honest.
Well, they were all came after Untouchables, though. Before that, that was his breakthrough film. Same goes for Brian De Palma, really. It was his breakthrough film. He'd never had a big success before. And he was sort of dismissed as sort of a Hitchcock copycat. David Mamet had never written a successful film before. He had only had success on stage. So all of these pieces and the same sort of fractured production process that you'd expect to produce a bad film, and it turns out to be one of the best films of the 80s. And then the next one after that will be why remakes are good, actually.
Oh, wow.
Cool. Yeah.
Which I'm only just sort of formulating now, but so that'll be a long way off. But yeah, I think I've got a pretty good thesis for it.
Oh, well, if we're plugging other stuff, I do have some videos, not just one going up tomorrow, but one next week and the week after that. That I've got written in already, and I need to put the finishing touches on the current one before I finish those. But some really cool stuff. If people want to hear about the male gaze, or if they like Dark Souls, some cool things going on over there.
Well, if I'm now that I'm thinking about it, I actually started uploading a video and before the stream started, and it's been just sitting over here uploading, or did upload quite a while ago. I now just have to title it, which I need to kind of formulate that. But it'll be up within just a few minutes after the stream ends. It is about, it was from, more of the stuff where we looked at Nerdrotics. I think it was last week. We looked at his attempt at using the Brand New Day subtitle of the next Spider-Man film, trying to basically use the animosity towards One More Day about that, even though they're very different things. And yeah, and then we also caught him in a lie while we were live on stream, because he talks about how, his readership among Spider-Man comics, it just dropped by half. Come to find out, at that point, there was already low readership on the Spider-Man book, and that by doing the thing that they did in One More Day, within a few months, readership went up. It had fallen. So yeah, we caught that motherfucker line. That was pretty fun.
Ooh.
And yeah, actually, you know what? I'll show. Did I show that at the beginning of the stream? That a shortened version of that? I think I did.
I'm not sure. I didn't quite catch it beginning, but I was just realizing, oh, well, that all sounds familiar to me. And then I realized it's
you're a part of it. You were in the chat. Actually, kind of. I found myself in a weird position because people are like, I think you were the one that said, I know people that you're just not going to just, I don't know, something about just a bad run or whatever. And I was like, well, hold on, Ryan. It wasn't just a bad run. It was erasing like decades of continuity that was the. And so, like, I'm not defending Gary and his position on it, but I definitely wanted to be more nuanced than just to dismiss it as just another, shitty run or something like that. But yeah, we caught him lying. Not Ryan. He doesn't lie. Gary. That's all he does. Yeah, and then Friday, I don't know exactly what I'll be doing, except I'll probably be looking into the old Mauler subreddit some more. That's really fun for me. I like looking at some of the deranged shit these people say. It's very specific and very, they're like the chuds who can actually communicate somewhat, and they're not just like monosyllabic grunts like a lot of Nerdrotic fans and whatnot. So it's interesting to kind of dig into their dark thoughts.
Yeah, it's a bit like the sort of Laurel and Hardy scenario. You've got the idiot who knows he's an idiot, which would be Nerdrotics fans, and then the idiot who thinks he's smart, which is Mauler's fans.
Yeah. And then what else was there? Yeah, I'll probably look at some more of that Daily Wire leak, quote unquote leak of the Superman film screenplay that Ben Shapiro supposedly wrote, because it's funny. But
it does look funny, yeah.
Other than that, I've really been wanting to try and formulate my Friday shows into something more like I shouldn't talk about what I want to do. I've talked about it before, and then it doesn't happen, and I just sound like an asshole that doesn't want to make my show better. But yeah, I've always wanted it to be kind of like a look back at the week, and like to gather up content from people that I like and there's good content out there, and kind of like essentially just promote stuff and like have a segment of the show be that, instead of just all looking at chuds. But that it is a lot of work to do that kind of thing, and I got family and other shit to do and stuff like that. So
I name drop you in the video.
You do what now?
If that's enough to pique your interest, I name drop you in the video tomorrow.
Oh shit! In a good way?
Little Dane mention. No, it's a horrible takedown. I really rip into you.
Cool.
No, it's in a good way.
All right. Well, yeah. By the way, all the people that we've talked to and heard from and looked at their channels here in the last little while, they are all always linked in the description, as well as many others. And I suggest you peruse those and maybe think about pruning your subscriptions. You know what I mean? That's something I don't think many people do very often, if ever. But like, you know, maybe go through some time when you got a few minutes and say, hey, did I subscribe to some channels at one point that I don't watch them, or in fact they kind of suck? And could I maybe add some of those in the description boxes of the Shillcast streams to my subscription, so I have better content on a regular basis? I think you should consider that maybe. Anyways, with that in mind, here is speaking of the Daily Wire. Here's a clip from Fatcast from a couple weeks ago when we talked about that Daily Wire. And yeah, check y'all later. Negotiation with Crowder to have him on, right?
Yeah.
From memory, it was like they didn't want to let him be as racist as he wanted to be, basically.
Right.
Part of first of all, there was Crowder and his fucking, you know, the hubris of being like $50 million a year. That's ridiculous. I'm way worth way more than that.
Slave wages. That's what he called it.
That's what he called it. Yeah.
They're probably counting themselves lucky they didn't hire him at that price now.
Oh yeah, they would be.
It would not. I mean, if that's the kind of contracts they're offering to people like Matt Walsh and stuff, though, then it kind of gives you an insight into where a lot of their money is going.
I mean, for that,
you know,
for that price, they could hire like 50 million Michael Knowles.
Yeah. Depends on you know, I don't know. I thought I had a joke there, and I don't.
But their fundamental problem is they can't decide if they want to be a news commentary company or an entertainment production company.
I think that's why Jeremy Boring has been reduced from. I think we're going to see them go more towards back towards what they originally were. I think whoever decided is making the decisions now is like, this was a mistake to put so much into, you know, a cartoon that's going to be the anti-woke Simpsons, and it turns out to, you know, get queer people love it and they're making fun of us for it, and you know, then just the movies and stuff like that they. If you look at the movie output of the Daily Wire, you can see that there's a shift that happens. And it seems like, you know, Jeremy Boring got tired of making stuff like Shut In and these other movies that really were only tangentially conservative. You know what I mean? There was like the school shooting one, I guess. But
they didn't even make that.
No,
they bought that one. They bought that one and distributed it, and it was like it hits every woke trope that they complain about.
Yeah. Then there's the Gina Carano movie, the Frontier movie or whatever, that made $300. And it was like, she's literally playing a fucking Mary Sue in it. Yeah.
Yeah, their audience wants highly politicized, look how evil the left are content. They can't make that because that would be awful.
And that's why I think that there's some of this failure going on with the Chud anti-fans, is you know, kind of people that we typically cover around here, because they have radicalized the audience. That's what they needed to get people into political, you know, politically activated, right? Was to kind of get them, like, to sneak it up on them. And now that they've been made aware that, oh yeah, well, I'm MAGA now, you know what I mean? Even though they started off just not liking woke stuff in their shows or whatever. Right. Now that these people don't want that kind of content, they probably feel condescended to, because they can see right through it now. So they're like, no, I just want to watch the guy that's going to say the Nazi talking points.
Well, it's the boy who cried woke.
Right.
I mean, that parable is a perfect illustration. They called everything woke, and now their audience doesn't want to hear them talk positive about anything, doesn't want to see them make anything, because everything is woke.
They decided to go with the fucking, and this movie could be great. I don't know. We know that I guess I heard the Chameleon's going to be the bad guy, which might explain the Punisher and the Hulk being in it. Kind of. Can't really explain the Hulk, but we won't get into those details. But yeah, like if they wanted to really spell out that comic book fans, we knew this, but we don't give a fuck about you anymore.
You will find that what Gary does a lot of times, what these guys do a lot of times, is they would have you believe that this company that has a lot of moving parts in it, different writers, different directors, different investors, all that they collectively get together and decide they want to fuck over fans of comic books.
That's what they want to do.
That just doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense whatsoever.
They don't do that?
So he's like, it's a slap in the face, or they hate us, or whatever. Like, they are doing that as like a wedge. They want to drive that wedge in between you and the media, as if you're supposed to just hate it because he wants you to hate them because he's telling you that they hate you.
Mm-hmm.
That's the entire like we talk about grifting, that is one of the best examples because he doesn't know that. He's just saying it.
At the end of the day, the core thing, the main thing, the first primary thing that they want is for you, the effect they want to have as influencers is to make you have resentment toward the thing that you once loved. And it's, you know, that's why there's so many lapsed fans, people that were maybe fans in the 90s or something, but they haven't been in a long time. But that's the easiest people for them to get, because there's somebody that's felt like at one point they had a connection to this stuff, but it's been so long that connection's hazy in their memory. They don't really, you know, but so it's really easy to convince these people, you know, that thing you used to love, it's fucking terrible now. Not only that, they hate you. Specifically you. You know, it's like...
And hate is an emotion. It's not even something that a company is capable of doing. It's such a dumb statement.
To think that, they're doing these things, they call it this because of money. And I think, honestly, it makes sense to call this movie that, because, like I said, the end of No Way Home was essentially One More Day.
Way better than One More Day, but yes.
It did the same function. It put his identity back in the box, and it fucking broke up and erased his relationship with
Except
MJ.
it wasn't a deal with Mephisto, and it wasn't shitting all over MJ. So that's good. But, yeah.
I mean, honestly, I think MJ in the comics had a better deal with because this one just like, oh, you're doing that? Okay, I guess I have no.
Well, they hadn't even been together that long, so it was like, you know, yeah.
Yep. I found
they hate you. There's a slap in the face. Shut the fuck up.
Fucking disingenuous, man. So disingenuous.
Go groom your beard, fucking caveman.
Go groom your Star Wars theory, man.